This episode is brought to you by Ghost Patch. Ghost Patch is a law enforcement-owned and operated company specializing in patches, coins, and flex shields. Quality is top priority with low prices. They always offer free design work and never charge mold or setup fees. Stop letting the big companies rip you off and check out Ghost Patch at ghostpatch.com and ghostpatchcustom.com. Now to the next story.
Sarmiento crime-fighting family. A tour de force on the Dallas police force. Izzy joined in 1988. Cousin Miguel signed on in 1991. Twin brothers Samuel and Saul joined in 94 and 95. The tale of the Sarmiento family goes way back, all the way back, in fact, to the tiny border town of Progresso, Texas, where all the brothers and cousins would get together and play cops and robbers. Fortunately for everyone involved, they chose to become cops.
I'd go back home to South Texas and tell them about my war stories and being out in the streets and arresting all these guys and getting the foot chases. My brothers and my cousin, they said, well, you know, that sounds like...
And a way out of Progresso.
He basically recruited us over here. He told us, you know, try it, you might like it, and if you don't, you know, you can try something else.
So far, everyone is sticking with the program. Izzy recruited cousin Miguel by telling him bilingual officers were in demand. He joined and now has an extended family which wears mostly blue.
You become friends, and you know, we all, you know, with other fellow officers, and sometimes you can become like family, but it always also helps to have real family, you know that's out there doing the same and believing the same things that you do.
4/5, and I'm en route to that 6X.
Police work is now a Sarmiento family affair, and it's also dangerous work. All four know anything can happen at any time.
And you hear some officers get hurt on the radio, and you worried, you know, that it could be your brother or your cousin. And it's very hard for us. You know, one thing about us, we take care of each other, and, you know, if I hear something out in the streets that they're involved in, yeah, I'm going to try to make my way up there if I can.
While Izzy is the first Sarmiento to wear a badge, most of the credit can be traced to his mom, who pushed the boys to become good kids. She died 5 years ago. She wouldn't be disappointed. All four wear the shield as a badge of honor.
When you can come home and tell your loved ones, hey, you know, I just did something great out there, and, you know, it makes you feel good inside. So, yeah, I think I'd do it again.
And then he started smiling at me. He said, you know what, son, I'm going to tell you something. He said, I already killed 3 people. He said, I'm going to be gone for life. That gun, we found out he had killed 2, and then he was from Mexico. He had already killed like 2 other ones over there in Mexico. He said, one thing I'm going to tell you, he said, the only reason I was telling my buddy that I wanted to kill you. He said, but you reminded me about, you know, one of my nephews or son or whatever, I can't remember. He said, but one thing that really impressed me was that you treated me like a human. He said, if you would have come with a nasty attitude, MF me or whatever, he said, there would have been a gun battle.
Going up there and then looking at the crime scene, it was graphic, you know, blood everywhere. And then what bothered me was, you know, it happened where they, you know, deliver babies, you know, and where, you know, we had to evacuate the floor, and it was chaotic, you know, and trying to, you know, the doctors and nurses were trying to help us move them out of the way. You know, we still had the victims there, the bodies, and we're trying to cover them, you know, so they couldn't see that. It was just crazy. You know, remember, I wrecked out first. You know, I was involved in a major car accident, and I always, you know, the man upstairs, you know, I would always battle with that, saying, okay, you know, why me? You know, I could have died that same night, you know, or he could have been here, vice versa. And, you know, emotionally, mentally, that bothered me for years, you know, and why me? You know, and that put a lot of pressure on me, you know, to what I'm doing now as a police officer, you know, and said, man, you know what, God gave me a second chance.
And you can talk to a lot of my troops. I've supervised a lot. One of the things with me, I always told them, I'm tough. hold you accountable, but I'm never going to disrespect you or belittle you, because, that happened to me when I was in training, but I always remember that. I said, man, treat people the way you want to be treated, and they're going to respect you. Because one of the things I've learned throughout the years is that people are going to respect the rank, but they're not going to respect you as a person.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal,
And we can learn from those mistakes.
and together we can bridge the divide.
We herd sheep. We drive cattle. We lead people. Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. General George S. Patton. When I think of today's guest, there is one word that comes to mind to describe these two twin brothers: leadership. They grew up in a small town in Progresso, Texas, and were born into a large family of 15. They learned work ethic early on as they would travel north with the family to work the agriculture fields. Both of these twin brothers wear the DPD badge proudly, as their Sarmiento name started here in Dallas in 1988 when their older brother, Izzy, joined the department. And since then, there have been cousins and nephews that have also worn this iconic patch and have served. I've known both of these men, these leaders, my entire career. I've always looked up to them as true badass warriors on this department. I take a lot of pride in getting these two men to sit down, as they are not ones to brag, gloat, or talk about themselves. They just come in, do their work, expect excellence and work ethic from those they command. And that is why they have both held high-profile leadership roles in the Dallas Police Department. It is my honor to welcome Dallas Deputy Chief Samuel Sarmiento, badge 7100, and Lieutenant Saul Sarmiento, badge 7293. Welcome back, Sarmiento twins. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
I also want to welcome on the co-host, Kent Wolverton. He's back on the mic as always. And also back is my old partner, former detective John Valdez. You heard his goodbye, and now he wanted to come and he worked under Saul for many years, and they were friends for many years. So he wanted to be a part of this. John, thanks for being here. All right, we're going to dive into it. Let's talk about life growing up. Who wants to go first? Growing up in South Texas.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Actually, Sam and I were born in a small town, Progresso Texas, in South Texas. But we were raised in a small town, Progresso, Texas.
What is the population in there?
I would say less than...
Well, back then, maybe less than 1,000.
Yeah,
Oh my
probably
God.
900.
Dang. So, wow. So, what the school look like? I mean, was it like one grade all the way through kindergarten?
No, actually, we had what is it? Kindergarten, first grade. We had junior high. We had the high school. Our mascot was lame. The Mighty Red Ants. It was a big old red ant.
Big old red hen. Wow.
Just had to throw that out.
I'm sorry.
That'd be the title, the Mighty Red Hen.
Jesus.
Now, the rumor is that the Sarmientos were half the population in Progresso. Is that right?
Maybe.
Maybe. So, what was home life like? Oh, well, first I got to ask, who's the oldest twin here?
I'm the oldest.
Oh, yeah? By how?
Probably 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
He's got rank on you, though.
Yeah, but what's so interesting in that is that my mom, she was in labor. I guess they thought they only had one baby coming, and he got the nice clothes and everything, and then here I come. So You know,
You got the leftover.
Yeah,
I
pretty much got the leftovers.
I got a freaking towel. So
yeah, I'm dressed all nice in the picture. Poor Sam, he's got a big old just. They wrapped a little.
He's got
towel.
that hospital towel
Yeah,
to give
pretty
everybody.
much.
yeah,
Looks like a bookend photo.
Yeah.
There you go.
But you know what? Regardless, he may have rank on me, but I'm his older brother. You know, he still listens to me.
It is very true.
no, don't.
I'm just joking.
So what was home life like with parents? Can you describe that?
You know, my 15 kids. I don't know how my mom and dad did it. You know, you're talking about, 7 brothers and 8 sisters. Actually, we have also twin sisters. So Sam and I are twins, and my twin sisters, Paula and Trini. And then, again, I don't know why I commend my parents, because raising 15 kids, it was a lot, and my mom, that I can remember, maybe Sammy can remember more, but, she would kind of had to prioritize who to give attention to, because, man, we were so many.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids. And then I mentioned in y'all's intro, which y'all hear later, about a work ethic that y'all had to. Clearly, you had to get a work ethic from your parents at that age. You look at the just raising kids, but also you had to make money to raise those kids in themselves. So the work ethic started early, I'd imagine.
Yeah, because my dad, he was a tough cookie. He was.
Yeah, he was.
He was tough. So, and my mom was more, compassionate. She was a mom of all 15 of us, so she did her best to try to, like you said, pay attention to all of us. Sometimes they forget our names. Like sometimes, hey, whatever, just come over here. And it was pretty cool. But as far as like my dad, he was more, strict.
It was a good cop, bad cop type thing there. So he was more loving, motherly love, and then dad had to be disciplinarian.
Yeah.
He to the point he took it to the next level. It was hard on all of us, especially the boys.
I also read that y'all would travel up north to work in the agricultural field. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we used to, again, like you said, 15 kids. My dad had to find a way to put, food on the table, pay the bills. So somehow that I can remember, I was even, I asked my older sister about it, and she said it all came about talking to some friends. They all, told him, hey, stories about going up north. You're talking about, for example, over here in Texas, like West Texas, Amarillo, then Idaho, Oregon, California, Michigan, to go, I guess, during the summer. And it was called, they would call it, what's the name? Seasonal migrant workers. There's a difference. Some people say, oh, immigrants. No, migrant workers. Okay, we're all born here in the U.S., so we will go over there and just work with the farmers, on anything, picking, onions, potatoes.
Produce, yeah.
Yeah, produce. We learned how to, that's how I learned how to drive trucks, standard, remember?
I think for us, we started working when we were like probably 8 years old, 9 years old. So
hard work.
Shit, yeah. And it was one of those where, it didn't matter if it was raining, cold, freezing. We had work, and we worked more than, you're talking about 12 to 15 hours every day. And it was, trust me, there was times that we were like, what the heck are we, even as a kid, you're crying because you don't want to be out there, but you make sure that, your parents were like, hey, you got to work, so tough it up. Or like when we used to cut each other, with knives, because you had to pick certain products with a type of knife. Hey, you just put dirt on it, put a little piece of rag, move on.
No, I was saying that it's real fascinating to me when Saul would tell me stories about y'all going up north. So when y'all would go there, would you live like near the farms and go to school there? How would that? Because he's told me funny stories how it's like your whole clan, your family would be like, at school sometimes it'd be y'all against everybody else. So I don't know how that worked out.
I think at first my parents, because we used to they used to take us out of school in May, and then early May, and then we would stay all the way to October. And so throughout the years, they never put us in school during the summer. It was just focused on working. But I guess every year the laws would change, and they knew that migrant workers had the kids out there working, and they was like, well, you're talking about labor laws and all this other stuff. So they started pushing our parents to put us in school. And I think we went to school for maybe, I don't know,
several years. Yeah,
few years. But and I mean, let's be real. Back then, we were the only, Mexican, Hispanic kids in Berkeley, Idaho, and it was all, white kids. So it was a little tough for us because there was a little bullying. I mean, they would want to fight us, and we got into a little trouble. But after that, it I guess.
Yeah, because it was kind of like a culture shock, because, again, like Sam was saying, the majority were, white individuals, white students, and we went to school, and we were the only, Latinos, Hispanic, whatever you want to call us, kids. And, we got into a lot of fights, because, again, it was one of those things where maybe it was, for that community, it was maybe new to them and new to us, and now we were kind of, they forced my parents for us to go to school, and there were situations when poor Sam was getting his butt whooped, and I'm over there trying to help him out, and I couldn't because they were whooping me and then my little brother, and I think my dad kind of got tired, of us just fighting every day, because I think what helped us survive, Sam and I, and my brothers, we. For several years when we were young, we learned how to box, and I think that's one of the things that kept us going.
Well, a lot of those kids y'all were they were messing with y'all probably, for one, didn't have y'all's work ethic already, and then you got boxing skills on top of it.
Yeah,
there's probably a lot of ass whipping going on.
Oh yeah,
Hey.
Yeah, but we get outnumbered, so
Yeah, no,
you can only you can take one, but when it's like 3 or 4
or 10, and you're like, man, that's it, you're done.
You just take the the little smacking here and there, but it was just part of being a teenagers. Like I said, but most of the time we stopped going to school, and it was mainly more focused. And plus, we were growing, like we were now 14. At that point, you're a kind of little rebellion teenager, and I'm not going to school. So, and my dad, well, he didn't mind because we were physically helping him out work. So he's like, all right, well,
take all the help I can get.
Yeah,
let's go to work.
So but in reality, it was some hard labor because, like I said, it's get up at 5 a.m. and then you get there at 6 and work all the way to 7 o'clock at night. Every day. The only day we had off was Sunday, and it was just to recuperate and try to rest. And then, but the focus was from May to October. That was going to be like, we're going to work real hard, and that was going to make us survive when we came back, for the next few months, and that would support the income for my parents to feed us and everything. Because one of the things that I can say and we're proud of, and my parents never relied on welfare. That was one thing that they always told us, hey, you got to. There was time they had to get some food stamps because there was nothing.
15 kids,
Yeah, but it wasn't something that we relied on. I mean, we worked. I mean, we had to work and make money, and that's how they raised us.
And I think that's, the mentality now, especially me, the things that I have, I work hard. And my wife and my wife's the same thing. She was also, I met her in South Texas, and she was the same way like us. She was raised, her family, and that's what, kept me going. It improved my work ethics, and I'm always, they have the mentality like today, you said to be here at 10, I got here at 9, punctuality, just being on time.
Well, both of y'all, I mean, I've known both of you your whole career. You are known for your hard work ethic, and you are known as tough guys. People, that's what your reputation is, and there ain't nobody. I've never heard anybody say you're lazy.
No.
And that started when y'all were. I mean, that's some hard labor.
Yeah.
For hours, and that become your norm.
Yeah, and I gotta also give credit to my sister. My sisters we were not the only ones. 8 sisters were out there working with us too. And they all became teachers, but they loved
more hard work.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't only the boys.
No.
My sisters, they sacrificed themselves too. but we were doing it for our parents, and then just to better ourselves. Because one of the things that I realized, even going through the years, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna do this for the rest of my life. Hell no, this is tough. And to be honest, police work, I tell my troops wherever I work, I say this is the easiest job I ever had in my life. Yep. So
it's easy. Because again, like Sam was saying, yes, you're right about my sisters. All of them, they work hard, like us, and they wanted to help, my parents. And because, again, all that income we would use to pay the bills, my dad, to feed us, buy clothes for school, anything that we needed. And again, they never rely on, welfare.
So y'all had a primary house in Progresso, but then y'all would have to travel for work.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our house was, that was our permanent residence, so we would go up north, and sometimes we would stay at, sometimes the ranchers will have a house, or most of the times we would stay in an apartment, or
they used to call them labor camps. It was more for migrants, but it was a big area where that's where everybody went there and lived, and it was almost like a community, but it was all migrant workers, and as it was also people from Mexico, but the majority was U.S. Citizens from South Texas, California. It was all wherever the produce was and work. That's where people would follow it. So
that's a long drive. From South Texas all the way up to the
I think it would take
Midwest.
us. Yeah. It would take us about 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, and my dad never stopped. Only to sleep for a few hours and keep on, driving.
Yeah, work.
Yeah.
What kind of car was it, though? It's got like a huge van.
It was a big old truck.
A long bed truck with everybody riding in the back?
Yeah, on the back. Yeah. It was kind of like a huge camp back there,
That's
camper.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was, and then, no AC, so when it was hot, and when it was cold, you were freezing your butt off, too, so.
Yeah, you come from South Texas, Progresso, and you get up there north, you're like, damn, you need a sweater, compared to what you're used to.
Yeah, it would snow in Idaho and Oregon. It was cold, but that's one of the reasons why now I love the cold weather, because of that.
I do too. No, because it's hot. It's hot enough when it's hot.
Mm-hmm. So all 8 sisters are teachers?
Not all of them. I think most of them, decided to go to in the education. I got one of our youngest sister that was actually born the same day with us, Viviana. She's a nurse.
But she's in
the school now.
In the school, and then so some of my other sister work for the government, but the majority they're educators.
Yeah,
that's one thing Saul's always told me, and I thought was pretty fascinating. Is out of all 50, all the siblings, they're all very, to me, successful and like civil service oriented. They got cops, nurses, teachers, state troopers.
Yeah,
that's wild.
What's impressive, and I think that goes back to that upbringing and to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents molded y'all with a hard ass work ethic, and everything you earn, you work for, and you earn, you appreciate more than probably a lot of other people.
Yeah,
yeah.
Chief, I do want to touch on this one thing that when you were 10 years old, you ran across a state trooper that it kind of impacted you. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, it was one of those deals. It was in Idaho. I think it was the town Hammett, Idaho. I think that's what it's called. But anyways, I just happened to see the state trooper. He waved, and man, it was like the best thing I ever seen. I think I'm trying to remember because it's been a long time, but it was one of those deals where he showed us the car. Of course, back then they didn't had MDC, so it was just button, but I thought it was pretty cool in his uniform, and I think I'm just trying to remember, but I do remember him kind of like, man, this is pretty awesome. But I think that was the first initial influence, but I think the main one was my brother, Easy, going to South Texas and talking about law enforcement. That's what that made it an impact for us because, like I said, we used to get into fights, but we never were like thugs. Were to the point where we were doing criminal stuff. Even when we're young, the problem with Progresso, if you broke a window, which I ended up breaking a window and I was told by a neighbor saw it, told my mom and my parents, and we got in trouble. So they knew. So any move you did in the neighborhood, they were gonna know. So, and they would let you know if we're playing with bottles. They're like, "Hey, we're about to call your parents." We stop.
Cease that.
Yeah. On that note, Sam and I, our parents almost, we almost end up burning our house. Because Sam and I, we used to watch movies, Vietnam Wars and all that, and I don't know what we decided to, put gasoline in bottles.
Like on Platoon.
So Sam and I were throwing those things at each other, and I don't know why, we could have burned ourselves, and I don't know what the hell we were thinking, and Sam threw one and hit the wall and almost burned the house up.
I mean, he didn't snitch on me. I didn't either, so we all got spanked.
Yeah, they whooped, my dad and my mom whooped our butt so bad. Oh, my God. But we never said anything.
Not only that, I mean, that was a time where me and him were playing with freaking knives and like we had swords, and my dad kept us, hey, you be careful, you're gonna cut each other or whatever. So sure enough, I hit him, I almost rip a finger off of him, so it's bloody.
we're playing like we're in knights, gladiators, and pow, pow.
And these knives were sharp, man.
And they're real knife. I don't know what the hell we were thinking, and boom, all of a sudden he cuts me. And
so we got quiet. My dad, I know something happened, and I'm trying to cover the.
I'm bleeding.
There's blood everywhere.
And even though I'm in pain, bleeding, I'm still getting that, a whooping.
Yeah, he's thinking about hell. You got to get to work. What the hell are you doing? Cut your hands. You got to work your hands.
I work with that, almost losing my finger. Yeah.
But that was your fault because you wanted to play with knives, so I went with it.
So. That was your kind of first introduction to law enforcement, and then also your brother Izzy. We're gonna talk about him.
Okay.
So what got you kind of was it your brother?
Yeah, actually, I was in high school. I think I was either a freshman or 10th grader, and I remember Izzy would go down to South Texas because he would always do that every time he would, I guess have time to do it. He request leave, he would go and visit. His siblings, and especially mom and dad. And at that time, we still had our grandparents, some of them. So he always wanted to be around the family. And every time, man, he would go down there and talk about his little war stories, foot chases, car chases, fighting the bad guys, running code 3 to shootings and cuttings. Man, I was like,
you're just fighting with swords, and he's up there.
Yeah.
He's cleaning up the streets of Dallas.
And to me, it was like, you get paid for that?
I'm like, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I'll do it for free.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I'll do it for free. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, he started in '88, right?
Yeah.
We've had, and I believe, I did a post the other day, like a teaser post of this recording, and I have a picture of Izzy, and Lance Crawford said that was my classmate.
Yeah.
I said, damn, that's right. Lance did start in '88, and man, '88 was a very rough year for our department. We've talked about before.
Yeah, I think Cato was his classmate too. There's quite.
Oh, damn, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Try and get Cato on here. So him coming down and tell those war stories, that just
that right there.
That was it.
That was it. And I even told myself at that moment, you know what? In the future, I am going to be a Dallas police officer. I made up my mind. From that moment.
And you started before, right, Chief?
The what?
You started EPD before Saul.
Yeah, back in '94. So I think it was August '94. So. What happened on that deal? I guess we were getting ready. I was interested with DPS, and I want to also do immigration. So I had talked to my brother, and I said, "Hey, I'm also looking at other options." And looking back now, I think he planned everything the right way, where we did everything, the whole testing in 2 days, because he wanted to make sure. Because I had told him, I don't think he knows, but I remember I told him, I said, hey, whoever picks me first, or
I'm a free agent. Whoever.
I'm gonna go, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it. We're gonna get all the tests and everything, fast. And we did. We came together and we did all the testing and to be honest with you, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't want to come to Dallas. I kind of wanted to be more DPS. It's one of those deals where I want to stay in South Texas. So I came with an attitude like, man, I don't care if I flunk this testing. I'm going back home. And I think that helped me a lot because I wasn't nervous. And I was so calm, and that backfired on me because I would pass.
I would pass
the first one, second. And I'm like, man, when are they going to flunk me? So then I kept on going, and I'm like, shit. I mean, it's been like,
what do I got to do to get fired?
Yeah, and then I did the polygraph. I said, oh man, I'm gonna flunk that one. I'm done. And they asked
you ever cut anybody with a sword?
Yeah. So I answered the questions, and they didn't hit me with anything else. So I'm thinking I was done. So I'm like, I'm waiting. Please tell me I flunked. So then the guy's like, all right, you're going to the next whatever it was. I think it was the interview, the last one, or psychological. No, the psychological.
Yeah.
And even there, I said, well, I'm crazy. I'm sure they'll find something. So I'm out. Nothing. I'm like, you kidding me? So then the interview, that one, I go in. There was
the interview board.
Yeah, the interview board, and it was a captain and two. I can't remember, but anyways, he's freaking butthead. You know how you write the little note, you want to be a police officer, man. He read it and he starts cussing at me, and he ripped it apart, threw it in my face. Why do you want to be a cop? And I'm like, what the? I'm thinking this guy's.
Izzy didn't tell you about that.
No, man. Okay. And I'm over here getting mad. I mean, trust me, I wanted man, if you want to go, one of those thinking, I was getting all ticked off. So I answered the questions. They put pressure on me. What are you gonna do? And all this other stuff. And then I came out and I'm like, man,
that's it. I'm done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, there was a female candidate that went first. I mean, she looked all nice hair and makeup. She came out, the hair was all messed up, and she had like a rash. I guess it was the stress.
Yeah,
crying and crying. So I'm thinking, crap,
the hell's going on in there?
So I'm thinking, I'm next. And we were at the old building, 106 Howard, I think.
Yeah.
So they slammed the door. So I'm like, crap, okay, I'm next now. So I'm like, I'm out. So after I went through it, I came out, and I think it was at the time, that's when I got to know Michael Lewis. He was one of my classmates and became actually my first partner in Central. But I see him, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, he's like, hey, man, what do you think? I said, I think I'm toasted, so I'm going back to South Texas. And then they call me back in, and they're like, hey, congratulations, you're going to the academy in the next few months. Or what. I'm like, man, I mean.
I wonder if Izzy told them to be like extra hard on you just for the heck of it,
because
he might have. I think that goes that way sometimes. Hey, man, just be really hard on him. Just my brother,
Yeah, because I do remember that. I mean, he literally ripped a damn piece of paper and threw it, just threw it in my face. And I'm like, what the?
How old were you then?
I think I was 22.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I started. I was 22.
Yeah.
I did mine at 106 Harwood as well. Down there, and they were, for the listener, we've never really talked about it, but any police agency, there's a process, and then there's a thing we call the interview boards, and usually it's a setup of 3 senior officers, and I mean, I had a lieutenant and a sergeant and a detective. It was Gallagher. It was a homicide. He was on my, and he was the biggest prick, but that guy, I was like, he's the biggest jerk, and Cheryl Scott was the lieutenant, or the chief. She left as chief, and I can't remember who the sergeant was. But Gallagher was such a prick. But then talked to him after. He's the nicest guy, and he was an amazing homicide detective.
Yeah, even I do remember this Hispanic female. She was in traffic. I think she was a senior corporal, and years later I would look at her, and I'm like, man, but. Once I got to talk to her again,
it's just a process.
It's an act. It's an act. You flip a switch and you try to put pressure on them.
But I hated them.
Yeah,
because I'm like, every time I would see them, but later on you find out it was just the process.
A mind game, pretty much.
Have you ever done the interview, like sitting on those?
Yeah, I did. I did as a sergeant, lieutenant, and I mean, mine. You know how I am, and I don't smile. That's one of my criticisms, and always look like I'm mad. But I do remember I made like 3 recruits, candidates cry, and
I could see that.
But it wasn't like I'm screaming or anything. I finally had to stop him. I said, "Hey, hold on!" I said, "What's going on?" And I remember one of them. He's like, "Well, I want to be a police officer." And I said, "Okay." I mean, hey, chill. I said, "Take a breather." I tell you what, let's take a break. So later on, after the kid passed or whatever, I do remember the other, whoever were with me, they were like, man, Lieutenant, you're making all these guys cry. I said, you know what, I don't want to do this interview process anymore because I just felt bad for the kids, but it wasn't that intentional. Like I was, I'm just a serious guy, and they were just.
Well, one train of thought is a very serious job, and you do have to have. You're going to deal with stress every day you put on that uniform, and every day, and you can't always run to HR and complain about something, and let this. Well, however you were treated by those 3 officers in that room, they were putting on a show for you to test your stress. It's not going to be near what you're going to see out in the streets.
Yeah, I never did it, because, but I monitor it because John and I used to work in personnel as recruiters and background investigators, and we used to do the on-site testing every month. Oh yeah,
no, I did like it. I mean, it was not all of them did that, but a few did. But after that, they were all relieved because they would just look at me, and I don't smile, I don't make expressions. I just
got Darth Vader sitting there.
Well,
they don't want to mess with it.
I don't think I've ever actually seen Chief smile until he said, "I made 3 of them cry."
No,
a little smile broke out right there.
No, because look, to me, even up to now, I've never. And you can talk to a lot of my troops. I've supervised a lot. And one of the things with me, I always told them, I'm tough, hold you accountable, but I'm never going to disrespect you or belittle you, because, that happened to me when I was in training. But I always remember that. I said, man, treat people the way you want to be treated, and they're going to respect you. Because one of the things I've learned throughout the years is that people are going to respect the rank, but they're not going to respect you as a person. And if you treat them like crap, they're not going to have you the respect. They're only respecting the rank because they have to. But once you turn around, they're going to flip you off or whatever.
Well, they won't work for you either.
No,
they won't
at all. So and that's always been my thing. I don't forget where I came from. I don't.
Chief, what class were you in the academy?
First class, I was in, I think it was 241, and ended up finishing at 242. I guess doing the academy, I think my mom, it was when we were kind of young. She was diagnosed with cancer, and I think looking back, I think we were probably like 16 when she was diagnosed. So she was fighting the battle with cancer
for a long time.
Yeah. So, and I believe when I joined, it was August 12, 1994, and I was with, like I said, 240, and then real close to Michael Lewis. Joe Marine was in that class, I think. Yancey Nelson. There's quite a few there. And I was there until October when she passed away. And so when she passed away, back then was a little bit different. There was not like right now with Academy. So they said, hey, you're going to be off for another 2 weeks, whatever. So we're going to take you out so you can focus with the funeral and all that. So because I knew I could handle it, but being 22 years old, losing your mom.
And you're so far from home, too.
Well, yeah, and it's at that point you were like, I don't care about the academy. I don't, I just, you're mourning, but also you were focused and trying to survive, with the academic stuff. And the running, the exercise was easy for me. It wasn't a big deal. But just staying focused, and I guess they realized, and I kept on fighting. I said, no, I can do it. Just let me go to the funeral real quick and come back. They're like, nope, don't worry about this. And I appreciate that, because it was one of those deals where I ended up taking off probably like more than 2 weeks. We were over there and making arrangements because, she was here in Dallas, in the Metroplex. And I think what happened was she, at the end, they told her, hey, there's nothing you can do. You just got a few more days or whatever. So my mom said, hey, I don't want to die here. I want to die home. So we decided, hey, we're going to make it happen. My brother, Easy, we put her in, we couldn't fly because of her condition. So we took her all the way to South Texas. So, and then he kept on telling me, no, you stay there, because, he wanted me to make sure to graduate. So when she passed away, they said, no, it's time for you to, do the funeral stuff. And then I got recycled. So I was out for like 2 months. I was working in personnel, and I think it was this sergeant. It was funny because the guy, Sergeant McKelvey, I think, he would give me work. But again, my work ethic was, I mean, I finished my stuff so fast.
20 minutes and you're
yeah.
done. Yeah.
So he was like, okay, we'll do this. And then, bam, I got it done. So finally one day he's like, look, man, do you have family around downtown? And I'm like, yes, sir. Disappear. Just go visit them, say hi to them, come back in 2 hours because I don't have anything else for you to do. So finally they moved me to the employee relations. And I think at the time they were doing some banquet, friends, whatever you call that, banquet. So they needed help, and of course, I didn't mind them. They're like, "Man, I just want to do something."
You want to work?
Yeah. Yes, I was. It was killing me just sitting on a desk, answering the phone. I'm not that type of guy, so it was just I was miserable. So once they put me there and they said, "Hey, you can work," man, I was having fun.
What was the impact on the family? I mean, I know you're in the middle of trying to start a new career, and Izzy had already been here for like 7, going on 8 years, and then. So where were you at this time?
I was South Texas still, and I was there when actually they, Easy, they brought my mom, back home, and that's where she wanted to be. And actually myself, my dad, and my sister, and my uncle, we were there on her, final moment. She actually ended up dying in our arms. And it impacted me a lot. Like Sam said, you're 21, 22 years old, and your mom dying very young at the age of 50, and seeing her, just suffering, with a lot of pain, and there's really nothing that you can do, just comfort her and give her good, just talk about the good memories or whatnot. So yeah, it was a very difficult.
Anyone of us I would take her place if I could. I was like, hey, take me. But, it's just one of those deals where, unfortunately, the research and the medical advance wasn't there. So, but even going through her struggles, she kept on pushing us. I remember, I had asked her, hey, Mama, you going to come to my graduation? And she's like, we'll see, son. And at that point, I kind of knew, hey, I don't think she's going to make it. And she didn't, but it was one of those where it impacted us, and then my little brothers and sisters, because they were still kids. I mean, my oldest sister became the sort of like the next mom.
Yeah.
She never got married. She took care of all the other kids. But it never broke us to the point where one of the things about us as a family, we never got into fights or we never, hated each other. We're always being close, and it was one of the things that she always pushed us. Even with our cousin, like Miguel, who was also a lieutenant here. I mean, we're close as a family, but as far as ourselves, our 7 and 8 brothers, I mean, we were real close.
Mm-hmm. You had a lot of rocks to lean on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Chief, once you finally graduated, once you got recycled and you came back, how fulfilling was that for you to accomplish that?
Awesome, because I was there in the academy too long, but I think again, I think at that point I finally realized, hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna stay here in DPD, because my intentions was always I wanted to go back to South Texas, but looking now, it was the best decision ever. So it was awesome because we went to Central. And when I wanted to go to Southeast, I picked all the South Side. Heck no, they didn't. They sent us to. I went to Central, and then one of the things that Central, that was a reputation that they were tough trainers, and we did. I mean, I did have one, John Rigney. He was tough.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, and and he was an okay guy, but I just didn't like certain things as far as, like I said, as recruits, you're under a lot of pressure, and sometimes it went to the point where they were messing with you, and that's okay. It was part of training, but it was good. I mean, it was diverse, and I got to see my brother because Easy was there in SWAT, and he would like watch me, and he would kind of tell me, because one of the things that my brother and that's something that we always push ourselves was we didn't rely on hookups like. Yeah, I got my older brother, because even when I was in the academy, I never told him that Easy was my brother. And there was instructors that would go in there. I remember one guy, it was in traffic, and he's talking, and he sees Sarmiento, and And he's like, hold on. Hey, man. And I'm like, hey, he was a tall black officer in traffic. And I think he was an A&I or something. So he's like, hey, man, are you Luis's brother? And I'm like, yes, sir, man. He's like, hey, man. I mean, he started talking. And now he was nicer than all my classmates. Like, what? You have an officer as your brother? Yeah. And, man, the word was out.
And he says, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time instructors, they were looking for me. And they were nice. But that was one thing that my brother always said, hey, man, don't be nice to them. Push them hard, treat them just like the way the other recruits. And they did. I mean, there was no hookup. Hey, don't worry about it. No, I was out there sweating and getting smacked too, just like them,
And so you were working at the IRS. I read your IRS.
Yeah, I was working for the IRS.
What was that about?
Before I joined DPD, I came up here, worked for the IRS, I think for a couple of years, and it was in the collection department. It was kind of tough. I was very young for that type of work. It was in
very tedious.
Yeah, it was in a controlled, secure environment. You had big old computers in front of you. Even before my first day when I went to report there, going through the application process, walking downtown from a small town, Progresso, 900 folks, to freaking 1 million, huge buildings. And I was like,
computers.
Yeah, computers. And I'm like, it was, again, like a culture shock, from a small town to a big city. And then the job that I was doing was, collecting as far as it was collection, trying to help those individuals, the taxpayers, to help them resolve what they owe the IRS because they failed to pay their estimated taxes. When you're a self-employee, and companies, we would try to set up installments agreements, and for those that wanted to cooperate, the interest and the rates as far as they were very high. Once you owed a lot of money to the IRS, forget it. And those that refused to cooperate, then we would garnish their wages. We would put levies on their, bank accounts and property. I dealt with a lot of back then, DPD officers that were working extra jobs that, they didn't pay their estimated taxes. And I remember several of them, later on when I got hired. I'm like, oh man, I dealt with you before. But
yeah, we remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good thing he didn't tell him because they would have called him a squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was my job,
How did you get that job?
Well, my sisters, again, like Sam was saying, they were, worked for the federal government. And my sister, I needed a job. I came over here. I was working at a Walmart stand with my older sister. And she said, hey, they're hiring at the government. Why don't you go in? And I did. And
that's a good job. I mean, it's a damn good job.
Well, before that, when I applied with DPD, they were doing my background, and they had a guy head of security because that, like I said, that thing was a restricted area, and he was in charge. Because you'll be surprised, like anywhere in any agency, people were trying to scam. Some of my coworkers were sending, refunds to their families, not knowing that. Man, you're going to get caught. It's
corruption everywhere.
Yeah, corruption. And he was the head of the guy, head of security. And, one day he would show up with 2 revenue agents and, handcuff someone, take him somewhere. And we're like, okay, I was scared. So he learned that, I wanted to be an officer. And he talked to me, hey, I heard you want to be in law enforcement. I'm getting ready to retire. I would like to train you and actually take my spot. You'll be good at this, blah, blah. And I was like, no, thank you. I said, I always wanted to be a Dallas police officer. So, yeah.
And especially you had 2 brothers already that were already on at that point.
And a cousin, yeah.
And a cousin. So what year did you finally apply for DPD?
John and I guess, we got hired on September the 22nd of 1995. Yeah. John.
Your pre-hires?
No.
John, straight on in?
Yeah, we were at 106, South Harwood or 2014 Main, whatever you want to call it, at the basement. That's when I met John. I didn't know his middle name was.
Man, he hated me for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, to this day, I don't know why he just hated me. Him and Galvan.
Yeah, me and Raul Galvan, Sergeant Galvan, who was retired, we were there, and
They were just mean.
John was looking, and we're thinking, he's Valdez, and I'm like, my name is John Vernon Valdez. I'm like, oh, Vernon.
Oh yeah, Vernon. You mentioned Raul. He had a scowl too.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I worked with him when I was in legal quite a bit. We got along, but I could see him get mean mugging the hell out of somebody.
Yeah, I don't know why for some reason, but then we became good friends.
Clearly, yeah, it clearly worked out.
Yeah.
What year was that? You said
1995.
95,
Yeah.
and you'd already been on
about a year,
and then your brother Izzy. So you go to the academy with Valdez, and how was that? What was that like?
It was fun. We had a good time. Valdez had his own, group of guys. We didn't at the academy. We didn't, he had his own friends. I had my own friends. I don't know why, but it was fun. It was.
You make a lot of lifelong friends, though, if you do it right. And then when you look back at your time in the academy, I know everybody's wanting to graduate, get the hell out of there. But once you look back, you go, man, we had a lot of fun, and we got paid pretty well with to basically play cops and robbers in there.
Yeah, and I mean, with my classmates, we did some things that stayed with us. I guess joking around, and especially in the men's locker room, fighting each other, and then the instructor would show up, and he acted like angels, but and that's how you got to know each other, especially like running and exercising, and you would pick a certain group that you got along with, especially lunch. Because there was times that you had some, you're like, man, this guy is getting on my damn nerve. And you stay away from that person.
Oh, we had those too.
Yeah, and then we had, what's his name, John? Remember, you probably had him. He was a senior corporal. He was a black senior corporal. He would go in as an instructor, start yelling and screaming.
Hiram Burleson.
Yeah,
Burleson. Oh, my God. Yeah.
And then remember when he's
the nicest guy, too.
Yeah, he would fire the blanks. I was in
the DT room.
Yeah, I remember I was in the back, and we were in the
room.
class.
No, in the class.
And then he walks in, and all I remember seeing a gun, bam, bam, bam. Man, I flipped the table. I mean, we're thinking, what the heck is going on? And then they're like, one of those hexes like, get out, officers down, and you're running like idiots. But it was actually pretty cool.
The first time I experienced him was, he walked in there and as an instructor yelling and screaming.
The ethics class.
Yeah, and then he started, Rick, get up. So I get up, and he's like, okay, can you explain to me, general orders, 207.0. I have no.
And it was early on in that.
Early on, I had no idea, and then he's like, get out. I'm like, I don't know. You're fired. Get out of here. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm fired. I guess I'm going back to South Texas because I just quit the IRS. And then I'm walking. I'm pissed off. I'm like, And then I walk out, and what was his name? Jackson, Senior Corporal Jackson. He was our class advisor. He's like, stop. I'm walking out of the parking lot. I'm, cussing.
You're leaving. Yeah.
Yeah. No. You're okay. It's just, and here comes another one. And I guess it was a game scaring everybody in the damn room.
Well, that, and then I think the ethics class, like in our class, we were the first ones. And I remember everybody took that class, and I mean, supposedly it was a hard test or whatever. So they brought us in. They're like, hey, we got a problem. Half of you didn't pass the class, and I'm thinking, oh crap, it's me. So they told us, hey, whoever steps outside, they didn't tell us why, but they said we're going to call your name and you're stepping out. So I'm thinking, if they're calling us out, basically we're getting fired.
Pink slip.
Yeah. So then my name, they call me, and I'm like, crap. I mean, I'm done. So I'm walking like, oh well. And then I think it was Gloria Perez. She was the lieutenant.
Yeah.
And she stops me, and she's like, you pass. I'm like, what the? Oh, okay, cool.
It's to add more stress.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's what it was. It was a mind game.
I want to describe Hiram Burleson though. This guy, he big dude, bald, always sweaty. And he's in there, and he's like, literally, we're terrified. We're all early 20s and mid 20s, and this guy's in there, and he's screaming at everybody and makes them stand up and trying to answer questions. There's no way he probably didn't even know the damn general order question. But you're fired.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
People left and right.
Yeah, and you go out in the hallway, and you didn't want to make eye contact with him at that point. You're staring straight ahead, and you're hoping you don't get called on. And then it kind of segued into, ethics, and this is not the way you want to treat other people in the professional. But damn, it was scary.
But man, he was the nicest guy.
He was a nice guy.
Yes,
But looking back, I think that to me it was more of the discipline side that they were trying to teach. Like, remember, they would tell them, make a hole, and even with senior officers, and you would make a hole if you didn't. You went to do push-ups or sit-ups, and I mean that was just part of the culture back then.
Well, now they didn't do this whenever we were through. That you have to go walk down the hall, and they still do make the hole at the academy. It's ma'am, sir, sir.
That's annoying.
It sounds like the birds on that Finding Dory movie. Remember they're mine,
sir.
Yeah,
sir.
it is. It's like I always grin. I always grin when I walk through there. And I'm like, okay.
Hiram was on my applicant interview board.
Really?
Oh, was he rough?
Oh yeah, no, it was hilarious. Looking back, like in the moment, it was not cool. But he asked, "Have you ever been in a fight?" Yeah, I've been in a couple fights, whatever, nothing big. And he goes, "Did you win?" And I said, "Well, I didn't lose." And he says, he stands up and he slams his hands on the table, right? And we already discussed he's a huge dude, right? He says, "I'm 6'2", 250. You think you could whoop me, boy?" Ooh. I just kind of sat back in my chair.
All sweaty.
Yeah. No. I said, yeah, well, I guess we're going to find out. Like, this is about to happen. Right?
Yeah.
I'm in a suit. Like, you're about to kill me. Okay. Yeah, no, John was my
Yeah,
background.
Valdez, yeah. He did a lot of people. John, you've done a lot of people I've had on. So John was my background investigator.
I did too.
And so
a lot of people that are in the command staff. Yep.
I got a pretty good laugh out of your retirement episode where you were like, I didn't really impact too many people. I didn't do anything cool. No, you impacted a lot of people, more than we'll probably admit it. But yeah, I mean, I'm only here because of John Valdez.
So I did read something, your class motto. So what was that?
Oh my God, it was kind of cheesy, right?
They all are, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was something about. You know it, John. I know.
I bet it's laminated in your
man,
pocket
oh
right
my
now.
God! He was singing.
He wakes up every day and
he was
salutes
singing.
and says it.
No, it was something to the effect class 247. We're here to serve you 24/7. Oh my!
It's committed 24/7.
Okay, yeah, well, committed 24/7. Yeah.
You know what's so funny? I don't even remember mine, and I had two. I had no idea. Seriously,
Sammy had two.
Yeah, I really don't.
Well, looking back though, everybody's so proud of those mottos.
Yes.
Other than Sammy, he didn't care. But everybody's so proud of those mottos when they're up there and they're screaming them and they're screaming them at the academy. And then after you walk out that door, you graduate. So it's over. It's over.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys remember yours? I don't.
But best of the blue 252.
Ours didn't even really rhyme with our class number. I didn't know we were supposed to add that in there. I think it was dedicated to the call of perseverance through it all.
That ain't bad.
It's still cheesy. They're all cheesy.
They're all cheesy.
You can't have anything super cool.
And depending on the numbers that you're having to work with the class, it makes it really difficult.
Oh, God. Good thing I don't remember mine. Seriously. I don't.
Imagine the one like class 300 or 400. What it has a zero as it. But that's kind of.
I think they probably change it.
There's a lot of poets on the department that come up with that crap and win down in the class.
Well, they've got to be recycled. I mean, how many words rhyme with two? And four. It's the same thing over and over again.
So what? Well, we just graduated 399, so 400 is up.
Oh,
we just came last Friday was 399. So
yeah.
So where did you go? So
I ended up going to also Central, and that pissed me off.
And he was already there, and then you had
Sam. By then, I think he was in CBD, and I was like, Sam, I wanted to go to Southwest, wanted to go to Southeast, and no, they sent me to Central. And Sam is right. We had trainers that, man, they were difficult. I know, I get it. That it's part of the the program, but there were some that they took it to the extreme. Treating you so bad. I had my classmate John Merritt. John also hated it. Central. Cherie Hatton was there. With me, and it was hard. It was.
No, I think for us, and I mean, I still have an accent, but back then, our first language it's been Spanish. I mean, we're a border town. We always spoke Spanish, and then what you call Tex-Mex. But when you came up here, you had to speak English, and I think that to me, what I experienced was the accent was like sometimes they would like, "What are you saying?" And it was kind of hard, but later on, I guess the longer you hear your voice changes or whatever. So, and one of the things that people don't understand is when you speak two languages. Even now, I just went to Mexico not that long ago, and over there I just talk Spanish because it just comes automatically. And sometimes when I was here in training, I would talk to my trainer in Spanish and then English. Your brain was it's just kind of weird. It kind of, for us, it's like when I'm talking to you right now, I'm thinking Spanish, but I'm talking to you in English. It's just weird, or vice versa.
Even now, wow.
Yeah, because in South Texas, we used to call it Spanglish. Because even if you go down there in South Texas, McAllen, Brownsville area, over there, they, for some reason, they'll start a conversation in English, and then Spanish, English. It's so weird. Even when I go visit,
intertwined.
Yeah, I go visit my friends and my family, and you don't, when you're having a conversation, you don't hear it. But then when it's recorded, and you're like, I'll be damned. Well, how the hell are we doing that? From English to Spanish, Spanish to English. It's just, it rhymes.
Became a pro at it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, really. So we've had a lot of people on from a lot of people from Southeast, as you probably heard. We always praise Southeast, and we have Southwest. And
we
Northeast
heard
folks.
that.
Yeah, I know y'all have heard it. Probably sick of it, like everybody else. But Central is very unique as well. And then you factor in CBD. Can y'all kind of describe? Because we've never described the difference in Central CBD and Central.
So what happened back then, and when I joined, when I finished training, I went to. I was in Third Watch, and then they put us in the project. What is it? 158. And
158. Yeah.
You don't put guys that work, and man, we were arresting people. So I guess the sergeant, they were like, man, these guys, it's too much, and I get it, and plus it wasn't so much. Of course, now I see things different than back then. I was young and eager, and I just wanted to go to jail. So at that point, they started drafting people to go to CBD, and since we were the rookies, they sent us to CBD. The thing with CBD back then, I think downtown was like a ghost. I mean, it was. It's not as popular as it is now. Back in '95, it was just
we had the 5 p.m. It was a ghost.
Yeah, we had the West End, Deep Ellum, but other than that, everything else was just dark buildings and that was it.
With Deep Ellum, when I heard on in '97, I mean, it was hopping.
Yeah, it was. And the weekends, it was. Yeah.
But and then also the West End was still going, but now, man, West End's like a ghost town now from what it was. And because I grew up in Dallas in the late '80s and early '90s, man, West End was the happening place as well.
Yeah, and the only thing that CBD back then. Texas OU was crazy back then.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
They had they would have the tug of war, between the Red River tug of war, which was fun. But it was like literally you drive through Mardi Gras. The streets were just packed and bumper to bumper, and y'all had to work that as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we had to work that in the West End, and I think for a few years, but it was always packed there. Deep Elm, the thing with Deep Elm, it was Friday, Saturdays. We used to do the cruising violations.
All the cruisers.
A lot of homeless contacts. Not back then.
Not back then.
Yeah, boy, now it is.
Yeah, back then it was more. I mean, it's busy like it is, but it was more just cruising. And I remember we were in the middle of the street writing tickets. Sometimes people had warrants, put them in jail. Paddy wagon was packed with people. We were busy.
We were closed, Commerce Street. There was a lot of things that back then, we were able to do as far as, enforcement. Now, forget it, because now the businesses that have a voice now, and, if you start doing that, they're going to start losing business. So it takes only a phone call, and that's all we have. Yeah, and that's why we have those issues in Deep Ellum, So.
I see it more different as far as back then. You know how you were trained, and we were proactive. And I'm not saying we were more self-initiative activity rather than answering calls. Yeah, I hated answering calls. I just wanted to go to jail. I just wanted to write tickets, whatever, and that was my focus. Answering calls for me, like accidents, heck no, I couldn't stand them.
Yeah, especially downtown.
Yeah, so all I just wanted to go is just write tickets, go to jail, and that was it.
You get an accident downtown, it locks up the city.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So both of y'all have your foot in the door, and you're at Central. What did your family think about yet another family member going into law enforcement? You know, you touched on your cousin Miguel.
Yeah.
And how long had he been on at this point?
I don't know, because I know Easy, he got hired back in 88, and then Miguel hired in 91, Sam in 94, and then me in 95, yeah. And then my cousin Agustin, Martinez in 2001, yeah. Wow. So, and then now we have my nephew, David Cortez. He works at Southwest with me, a different watch. He joined the department, I think, in 2017.
Man. Yeah, I'm sure that's incredible. So the family back home, though, the other siblings, they...
I don't think, they knew, since when Easy became, a Dallas police officer, and then my cousin Miguel, and then Sam, I think, they weren't surprised. They knew I was going to do it, and they were happy. They were very supportive. Mm-hmm.
No, not only that, but as twins, I'm sure when you talk to the other ones, twins follow each other.
Yeah.
So every job we had,
we worked together every job. Yeah.
So even when we were working for Pizza Hut, Walmart, we always worked together.
Gas station together. Yeah.
So.
I really appreciate the twin connection. I'm married to a twin, and that I know exactly that way it is. The Candelarias and I, we're good friends, and I just see that connection that a twin has.
But even
appreciate it.
Even us as twins. A lot of people, they say, y'all had rivalries, blah, blah. No, Sam and I would never, competed.
Except when you're, like, knife fighting.
Yeah, those stupid incidents. Yeah, but we never had any issues. Sammy was always supporting me, vice versa. We helped each other.
Is that how your sisters, the twins, are?
Yeah.
Too?
Oh, yeah.
That's
They're
great.
the same way.
Did you guys ever steal each other's homework or take credit for it?
It's funny because, Scott was on. He was a PES for so many years, and now he's the background investigator. Scott used to go in South Texas. There was back then it was called University of Texas Pan Am. And Scott, he was a CJ major, with us. And, that's how I got to meet him. We had the same classes. And Sam, him and I, sometimes we had the same professors, you name it. And same classes, so sometimes me and Sammy, hey, I scored a 90, and Sammy, because we were working Pizza Hut late, and he's like, man, I didn't study. I said, man, don't worry about it. Cause I know his social security, everything, date of birth, you name it. So I would go in, take the test for him, and they didn't know that it was me instead of Sam, vice versa. That's great. And to this day, even Scott, when he got hired, saw him, hey, started talking about it. He didn't know that I was a twin until one day we were at in-service, and he saw Sam and I, and he's in shock. He's like, what the hell? And then he told me, man, no wonder. He goes, man, it was driving me nuts. I said, what do you mean? He goes, because I couldn't believe that, when we were in college, I had you in every class. He goes, in every class, not knowing that it was me sometimes or Sam. So he's like, I didn't know you had a twin brother. So, yeah. It was
I know.
crazy.
Scott's good. I was surprised he left crime scene because he was there so long.
Yeah,
everything has a shelf life.
Yeah, I kind of helped him out to, he had enough, with working those, crime scenes. Yeah, they were tough for him.
They see,
so
and what's funny is I just released the crime scene episode and the daily.
Yeah,
right.
Scott was on. Yeah, so so going back to Sam and I, we kind of.
So Sam took the T-Quil test for you?
No, not. You know what? We can't do that now here in the police department because they can tell the difference. I wish Sam could take my test, senior corporal test, sergeant.
It only happened one time, but most of the time it was more the lecture side. It was like I just needed him to sit there,
take notes, and
and.
Nap. That's great. That's great. Or go work somewhere.
Because we worked. I mean, we had to support our family. So there was times that we had rough nights, and I was tired, and I'm like, hey, can you just show up so I can at least get some few hours?
I took a couple of tests for you. I did.
I don't remember. But maybe you did.
You just walked in not knowing it was a test.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What was the best memory from patrol?
I don't really have the best memory patrol is working at Southwest. I had a lot of great partners, that I got to work with. Joey Fonseca, he works in narcotics. Joe Yanes, I worked with him for a while. And, just working at Southwest and even CBD, we were young, we were crazy, and on Saturdays, I think it was our Friday, we would hang out. Remember in the parking lot and hang out and talk stories and after work have a couple of beers, there and then go home. So yeah, those were the fun memories.
Chief, how about you? Best memory?
Best memory. It was more patrol and gang unit. I think I always liked certain groups that, as a group, operational was one of the things that the difference between me and him is he's more investigative. I'm more operational. But I think but honestly, in all the assignments, I've been everywhere. But patrol to me has always been the foundation of policing. Some people avoid it. Yeah, and some people avoided it a lot, but to me, I never did. I worked West Dallas back then. It was Northwest, and that's where I used to work deep nights. And my beat was 514 right there, McBroom and Puget. It was all drugs and guns, and I just like being out there working, arresting people. The best part to me, which we don't do anymore, is chases. We got into some crazy chases back then, and 30 squad. There were some that were coming from Southeast, and I mean, it was like it was crazy, and that was the thing that to me I had to where. Man, I thought I wrecked out, and I'm thinking I'm hitting a pole or something, and then all of a sudden the car just stopped, and instead of just freaking out, you still continue and get back into the chase, and like later on,
worry about it later.
Yeah, and then later on, you're like, man, I could have gotten killed, but at that point, you didn't even think about it.
Chases are fun, but damn, they're dangerous.
Yeah, no, and looking back now, but when you're a young officer, you feel like you're Superman, and honestly, to me, I never fear like that I was gonna get killed or injured. It's just, to me, it was work and
fun.
Well, one thing I've learned throughout the years is I always, like for me, I always told myself, like, look, I'm going home no matter what, and whatever happens. That's my number one goal, and if I happen to go, I'm taking the suspect with me. I'm not going by myself in a gun battle. That's just always been my attitude.
Y'all decided to climb the leadership ladder here at DPD. What got y'all to do that?
For me, it was more being an FTO. I think when I had some FTOs, some recruits that I always felt like I wasn't going to treat them the way they treated me. I always felt that I'm there to help them, support them, and I did. Some of them are sergeants now, lieutenants or whatever, and I had an impact on them. I was tough. One of the things, because to me, I didn't focus. You know how it is. People focus on if you're a hard worker. That's just my opinion, but I didn't care about a map score or report writing. I care about officer safety. If I saw you doing something that I felt that it was a safety violation, I was going to be all over you. Because to me, like I used to tell them, I said, it only takes one mistake and two things are going to happen. Either you're going to be severely injured or dead. And I said, you can't correct that. You can correct maps, the maps code, routes, report writing. But when it comes to officer safety, there's going to be consequences if you don't watch your back. And that would, to me, after that, I was like, man, this is not bad. I decided to take the sergeant's test. To me, even as a sergeant, it was probably the best rank for me because I was still engaged with my guys. I was tough. One thing about me, there was officers that kind of, I shouldn't say hated me, but they didn't like being supervised by me because I would tell them, I said, look, if you're lazy, if you're a whiner, we're not going to get along. I want people that work hard, that are honest and have integrity, the whole thing, and take responsibility for their own actions. And I said, if you're that type of guy, we're going to get along. I'm going to take care of, I'm going to fight whatever I can. If it's something where you were about to get disciplined, I'm going to explain it, why we did this, whatever. And I said, and one of the things I always told them, even up to now, I'll be the first one to take the blame. I will not put my officers, in a situation where I'm going to blame them. them at all. And once I became that sergeant, I know he's got his own story, but at that point, being around a lot of guys, I had in the gang unit, I had, like I said, 418 that worked for me. I had Edmund Chaka, Kevin Whitworth, Jeff Miller, a lot of guys, Paul Inman. So
some hard charges.
Yeah, and I love those type of guys that wanted to work hard. And then you had your average ones, but the thing that I always did is trying to balance. Some people were good at certain things, and that's what I would focus on. I say, hey, you know what? I've created some good teams when I went to the Knock and Talk with Chief Cadena. At the time, they started the Knock and Talk again, and at that point I wanted to get out of the gang unit. And I remember he called me. He said, hey, you want to try this Knock and Talk? I said, man, heck no, it's too much rules and all this and that. And then he's like, well, you can pick your own group. That's what drew my attention. I'm like, okay, so I can pick my own guys? And he said, yeah. And I did, and I had some good guys, and we did some good things. And then that's when I decided to go for lieutenant. When my daughter graduated from high school and she went to college, that was a perfect opportunity for me, because I did it as a sergeant 11 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And I loved it because I was everywhere. And then when I became the lieutenant, I think I was sent to Northeast. And that's when you learn, because as a lieutenant, he's about to find out, and I'm sure he has now. As a sergeant, you still hang around with your troops. Mm-hmm. But once you become a lieutenant and up, different. You're lonely. I mean, people are going to fade away, and that's part of the job. It's because you have to kind of separate yourself. It's like I tell people, I always tell them, I said, look, I always have an imaginary line. Even friends that I have, I said, you don't cross my line on this side, I don't cross yours. It's always going to be that way.
And now, especially you're a chief now,
even as a chief, it's definitely, I do talk to people, like when we're on our own, even here we can BS or whatever, but when it's business, it's business. And I tell the guys from 8 to 5 or whatever hours, you're not a friend. We're going to work, and that's the way it is. And I think it just, the higher, like I said, like I told you the story earlier, I didn't plan to be a major, to be honest. I wanted to stop at lieutenant. That was it until I talked to Ruben. He was, at the time, he was a deputy chief. I think he was a deputy chief or major. I can't remember.
Ruben Ramirez?
Yeah. So
I think he was deputy chief in investigation.
Yeah. So he's the one that kind of stopped me and asked me if I was going to interview, and I told him no, and had a long talk with me and convinced me. And I did do it, and got selected for the interview, and I couldn't back down. So, and like I said, it's been, every rank has its differences. I think even as a major, I've done patrol 3 years. I ran Northwest, and you tend to mentor a lot of the guys, talk to the troops, and my philosophy has always been, like I told you earlier, I go to details, and I introduce myself, and I let them know, hey, this is who I am. All I ask from you guys is hold yourself accountable. Do not lie to me. Tell the truth. You're going to be fine, because a lot of mistakes are being done in good faith. You think you're doing the right thing, and somehow you violated a policy, and it's not the officer's fault. And our job is to make sure and coach them and give them the training they need. But you also have the officers that maliciously violated a policy, or making excuses or whatever. Those I will, like I said, I'm not going to hold back anything. I will show no mercy on them. Whatever the discipline is, I'm going to hammer them, because to me, I feel like, hey, you should take pride of this job. And I could tell them, I said, you also
put you in a bad spot too as a commander.
Yeah. And then, because to me, one of the things is, I don't forget where I came from. I got a white copy here and there, but never to the point where it was more of a violation of policy, that you were thinking doing something right. And not every supervisor is going to be the same. Some sergeants are going to be hardcore, and they're going to hammer you. Hey, it is what it is. But I always felt like, one of the things about me, I've been in more than 20 years of wearing the gold badge. I never wrote somebody a white copy because they just pissed me off. Never have.
Me neither.
I always do the thing is we talk in person, and I say, don't ever do this again. I said, because next time I'm going to hammer you. And to be honest with you, it only takes one ass chewing, and those guys that work for you, they respect you. They're not going to do it because they felt so bad. I even had people come back and feeling like crap. And, a week later, still kind of down. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I said, what? And they're like, can I talk to you? Even as a chief. And they apologized. I said, look, man, I said, we took care of that last week. And I feel bad because I disappointed you. I'm like, no, hey, if, you did a mistake, you admitted to it, you own up to your responsibility. That's the respect I want, and I respect you because doing that. You never made an excuse, and they feel great after that. And I said, look, man, just put this crap behind. I'm not a vindictive guy. All I ask you is just do your best out there and go home every night. Period.
So, how about you?
Me, I guess the same thing with Sam. I became a senior corporal, wanted to train, but I don't know, something happened, that I ended up taking a different direction. I became a detective. I started in the robbery unit. Before that I was with John in personnel. I was a recruiter and background investigator, and then from there went to capers and work in robberies and work in assaults. And then I promoted back in 2007 as a sergeant. So I was a sergeant for 17 years. And I was in a lot of different divisions, some high profile units, public integrity unit.
I forgot you were there.
Yeah, I was there, and homicide and deployment, you name it. I was all over the place, and I agree. Like Sam was saying, that rank, that was one of the best ranks because I was actually very engaged with my subordinates, especially the detectives. And Sam, he's more operation, more tactical. He can mobilize an army. Not me. I was more now because half of my career, well, actually most of my career, I was in the bureau. And I was focusing on criminal investigations. And now that I'm in patrol, trust me, I love patrol right now. I needed a break, and I'm hoping to stay there for a while. But I had a good time, and then I became a lieutenant, and right now I'm having a great time.
You just recently promoted lieutenant, correct?
Yeah,
okay.
I promoted October of 2024. Mm-hmm.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I got to say, we want to get into your time in homicide as a sergeant in homicide. How long were you a sergeant there?
I was in homicide, I would say 6 years and 5 to 6 months.
Okay. I will tell you what your reputation is for other people that I had talked to, like that patrol and other detectives. You had a great reputation of you take care of your people, but also you're a hard ass. And when you showed up to the scene, you made sure there was the first responders, the cops that were out there, the patrol or whoever. That was your scene, and you were preserving it for the case.
Yeah, I was kind of tough, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Years ago, when I was in patrol back in 98 or 99. Fort Worth PD, they were in a chase, and they were chasing a suspect, and dispatcher was asking for anyone who was up north. I was actually element 417, and dummy me, I'm young. Okay, I'll go up there, and I get up on 30. They're going, eastbound on 30, and all I see, I'll see a DPS, I'm trying to catch up with him, and finally I cut up to him, and all he does is pointing back. He's like pointing back, and I'm like, so I'm looking in front of him. I'm like, there's no one in front of him. What the hell's going on? He's chasing, right? So he's doing this, look in your rear for your mirror, look behind. So I look, man, all I saw was a tsunami of red and blue lights. So the chase is behind me. I'm like, oh my goodness. So by that point, I'm like, we're coming up to passing Hampton, going towards downtown, and it was 5:00 p.m. Okay, so traffic is, all the traffic lanes were in a complete stop. So by the time you know it, the guy's wrecked out. They're there, and we get off, and they're pointing guns, and turn out, the guy, they end up shooting the guy, the suspect. I'm standing next to the Fort Worth and I'm trying to, get information so I can tell my chain of command or dispatch, right? And then first shot, and then I see, a truck driver just jump out of his truck and I guess he left it in gear. That thing hit my squad car. It's a big old mess. So then we get close. There's a female there. Suspect had a girlfriend. So we're all pointing our guns. She grabs the gun. She took her own life. So, we go and I don't know why, she was, stay in my lane, thinking we're paramedics, so we get her out. So, we did everything we could. So I never forget, man. It was a homicide lieutenant, which he became a deputy chief from North Central, Lieutenant James Elliston. Okay, he was a lieutenant, and SIU Sergeant Joe DeCourt. So they all showed up, and man, they weren't too happy with me. We pretty much made a mess. We made a mess, and he's like, man, they got on me so bad, me and another female officer, and it just stayed with me, that, oh my God, I felt so bad. And I think that's what I told myself, I will never do that again. And that's why I took that mentality.
Yeah, like in homicide, Saul would, when we go to scenes, sometimes like I would get there first, and we would like be like a mediator because we knew how he wanted the crime scenes, or he wanted just everything secure. Because in patrol, how patrol is. It's they're like dogs. They chase, and then when they get there, they just have no interest. They're like, oh man, they did their job. So I'd tell them, say, hey man, Saul's coming out here, y'all, but y'all need to widen this crime scene out, tape it off, stay out of it. Quit walking around in it. There's no reason to be walking around in it. And then he show up, and I remember one time when one of them was like, God damn it. There's those Sergeant Leather and Vinegar. And they walk off, they just like, they don't want to get their, we've had plenty of them where they, take one of them took for example, took a rifle from a murder and took it out and they found it in a trash can. It's perfectly fine in the trash can, whatever, but he took it out and finger fucked it and all kinds of stuff and then put it back in there. And Saul's like,
that messed up the whole crime scene.
Saul's like, what the, just screaming and hollering. I'm just like, man,
because there was some situation where officers, they didn't know better. Some of them they're not doing it maliciously.
We don't know because they don't have that experience. Of
they don't have
they need to work a case,
and they don't understand that stay in your lane. You just secure the crime scene and let the detectives and the sergeant, us, we're the SMEs. We're the subject matter experts. Let us do our job.
No, and I think part of it too is it's the experience of the supervisors, patrol supervisors. You have a lot of young ones now where. Like he would call me and hey, you need to tell your Northwest guys. I say I got it, and I would let them know, hey, don't make sure you cover the crime scene. Make sure you don't let officers walk through everywhere. And sometimes he would let me know, hey, you're an officer. I said, I'll take care of it, and we would have a talk with our lieutenants. But I think part of it's too. Again, it's just the way that affected him. It just like with me being an FTO, I became the FTO coordinator, and I have ex recruits that couldn't stand me because I was tough with them, and I even had one. It was last year at the academy. I was in service. Two of them, I didn't even remember them, but they were like, man. He said, Chief. He said, you don't remember? I said, nope, I don't. He said, man, you were tough with us with officer safety. He said, we hated you. He said, one of them said, hey, I got involved in the shooting. He said, everything you taught us helped me go through the process. And I said, I never panic. And I said, well, there you go. And they were like, no, he said, looking back now. And one of them, I think he was about to retire. He said, it was you that impacted us that made us who we are now. And I said, well, and I said, well, I appreciate it, but it was more just trying to make good officers. And I think it comes back to our work ethic that we always led by example and just, wanted to make sure that we had good officers.
And I never, like John was saying, one thing that patrol, they don't realize, that, there's a reason why, we have to, protect the, integrity of the crime scene, because you have to protect the integrity of the investigation. One thing, you learn a lot at the crime scene. I know, probably Courtney told you as far as the stuff that they do. We deal with DNA, with fingerprints. We tend, it would be up to the detective to, get with Courtney's, PES as far as how to process certain things, or what has evidentiary value, for the case later on, that would help with a conviction. And my mindset was, when I was in PIU, I was there for several years, and I took that same mentality to homicide, where in public integrity unit we would go after unfortunately the dirty cops, dirty city employees. And I would tell, the detectives at the time, we got to give it 120%. They don't belong here. They're dirty cops, dirty firefighters, you name it, and let's get rid of them. At the same time, you also give it 120%, to exonerate those, because anyone can wake up any day and, file a false allegation against whoever in the department. So I took the same mentality to homicide, and, there was a detective there. He's no longer there, that put that in my head, that one of my veterans, he said, what, Saul, he was a good friend of mine. He goes, we as homicide detectives, even you as a sergeant, we work for the victim, okay? Plain and simple. Our job is to bring justice to the victim. And also the second job is to bring closure to the family, and that was my mindset. And I kind of stole 3 words from Bill Belichick. You can ask John. My mentality was, just do your job. That's it. Do your job, and I won't bother you. I hated lazy detectives. Fortunately, I didn't have none. But they were my squad.
Except John.
No,
I'm kidding.
No, you know what? I was blessed for several years because I had a bunch of veteran detectives. We were, the A team. I'm sorry to say it. We were, but.
No, I love that. In Dallas Homicide, if anybody listens to the show knows how much I appreciate our homicide unit, and having on old Detective John Palmer, and we had Ice on, and had all these, Valdez has been on. It's just, I appreciate this department's long history with excellence, and that going back to Captain Fritz days.
Yeah.
So I want to get into some critical incidents.
There were several. In homicide, and, thank God in patrol, I vaguely remember, because I was very young. I had some shootings, some, homicide that I responded, and back then we weren't too deep in it in the investigation. Once we would set up the crime scene, separate witnesses, that's it, and we'll let the homicide deal with it. I think, the one that really bothered me was, one of the investigations was the, I'm not going to say a lot, but, so the details of that investigation, but it was the Methodist Central Hospital. That was the main one that really hit me hard because, I was actually the first one responding, because, as a homicide supervisor, you get all the notifications. And, man, I'm heading to that, scene, and, I didn't, it was all new to me, that situation. And I'm thinking in my head, because being there for 6 years, I kind of was able to, you learn from different ones. And, there's always, you get something out of it. And that's how, because you're the one making the decision as a homicide supervisor, when you're dealing with the medical examiners, you're dealing with arson, you name it, and they're calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning or patrol, and you're, just thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Okay, basically, I had that before, this and that. So I'm going, and then I call Scott Sayers. He was in homicide for 17 years, and I even asked Scott, hey, have you ever worked a murder in a hospital? And he's like, hell no. He's like, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm heading in. Okay, I'll see you over there, even him. So, going up there and then looking at the crime scene, it was graphic, blood everywhere. And then what bothered me was, it happened where they, deliver babies, and where, we had to evacuate the floor, and it was chaotic, and we're trying to, the doctors and nurses were trying to help us move them out of the way. We still had the victims there, the bodies, and we're trying to cover them, so they couldn't see that. It was just crazy.
Yeah, that was what he's talking about when the 2 nurses were killed in the hospital, and it was he got there first because I think it was a daytime murder, so he was probably closer. So Saul was like one of the first ones on the scene. He beat all of us there, but it was crazy, like he said, because normal crime scenes you're trying to separate and whatever. This one, you had the 2 nurse victims that are there still in the crime scene. And then every room has a mom and a baby and the husband, or so it just was so surreal when he's telling me what to do or where and giving me instructions on one end, and they were pulling out, like you'd see a mom walking out holding the baby with whoever her husband, and they're walking and like stepping over the bodies and stepping over. It's just it was the weirdest scene I've ever been a part of. And like I said, he was the first one there, and directing all of us. Like we didn't know what was going on, and he got there very.
And trust me, it was just for me as a sergeant, it was just too much. And my head was just going everywhere.
And you didn't even know it was a police involved shooting.
Yeah, and then I didn't even know until somebody tapped me. I think it was one of the sergeants there at the scene. Is, hey, Sarge. By the way, I said, you see that sergeant from Methodist Central? I said, yeah. What about it? I said, he's the one that shot the suspect. I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, so now, that changed the dynamics, but, we were so deep in it, that I said, okay, I decided to call SIU and say, hey, y'all come and join us, because now we're working, a capital murder and also an officer-involved shooting, and so they got there and we were able to, handle it, and, we had a suspect, but, he ended up getting convicted. But I think that was the biggest one that it bothered me a lot. Even, I went home and even my mind was still just going everywhere, so yeah, that was.
And plus you have a sister that's
a
nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot to process, especially you getting there. And I mean, and anybody wants to look up the case, go look it up.
Mm-hmm.
But how hectic and chaotic it is in a place. And then when you, like, I talked to John, I think the day after, and John was telling me, with all his experience of going to some very awful crime scenes, that was the most disturbing that he had been to as well.
Yeah, and then there was also another one. There was a big concert at 50/50 Cleveland. You remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had like 4,000 people out there. And then we had one who was killed, and then you had about 15 people that were shot. Yeah, because it was a group of suspects just shooting within the crowd, and that was very chaotic. Even for Courtney squad, to process the scene. And I remember the lead detective was there, and we just said, hey, just take pictures. There's really nothing that we can do as far as, because it was just too much. 4,000 people. Seriously, how we're going to be able to identify the suspect.
I want to tell you, there's nothing funny about a homicide, but a funny story about that scene. I don't know if he remembers or not, but so one of the most chaotic things you'll ever be a part of. But then at the same time, another murder comes out down in East Dallas, right? A stabbing, right? So we're all out there. We're handling this huge scene, and I know it is going to be high profile. Heck, the ambulances can't get in. It's just, like I said, it's an unbelievable scene with so many people. And then when that another murder came out, man, I was like, man, hey, I'm ready. Send me that one. I was ready to get out of there. So, so he sent Abel, and then I was like, hey, Sarge, Abel's going to need some help on that. I'm with him. And he's like, God, all right, fine, just go.
He
and
took.
I just kind of abandoned him, and there's nothing funny about it. But
then after that, we get another murder. Then we get another murder. A person who was stabbed, and they burned the body somewhere in Oak Cliff, and so it was. That one. There's a lot of them. My 6 years that I got to, see and
One thing that Criddle talked about, and some other, is what's different from patrol and first responders is you're dealing with the family with the grief. You have to. That's a hard part too, because that we're all parents and and their brothers and sisters, and you're dealing with these people that just lost someone.
Yeah, that was I hated the doing the next of kin, going with the detectives. That was. Because, later on I'll tell you, because that's what happened to me, with my brother Easy. But, delivering the bad news, you get very emotional, because, you have to tell, the family, but the family, they'll bring all their, the kids, because they deserve to know if it's their dad or their brother. And you're like, man, and then once you give them the bad news, man, it's just everyone's, they just, losing. They start crying, running everywhere. Some will fight you, and because they're mad, and yeah, it's just chaotic. It is.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I have a really hard time seeing people grieve that I know, and it bothers me when I see people grieve that I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something. That's one thing that the homicide unit has to deal with that a lot of people they don't consider.
Yeah,
I believe.
And John can tell you because I can tell you a lot of different bad ones that. Especially we hated dealing. Even me as a supervisor dealing. We had one where a 1-year-old baby was killed in a drive-by. We had a young little girl who was killed. Mother killed a young girl, and then she committed suicide. And that one turned into a ops involved shooting because they had to go in try to get. It was horrible, and she ended up killing her kid and herself, and he almost ended up killing the young girl's little brother, but he managed to get away, thank God, or else he would have been dead. So it's a lot to process, and I commend the detectives, that they are there, and John, they were there because, man, I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we were able to just block it, because now maybe I'll experience later on PTSD, because sometimes you got to have it. I'm sorry. It's got to be. It's not for everyone. I'll be honest with you. It's not the stuff that we see. That we smell. And it's just bad.
Yeah, Courtney talked about in the crime scene's role of you have to pack it away and move on because the next call's waiting, and the next murder's waiting, and and a lot of people don't process it properly.
No,
and it could lead to over time it decays your mind in your body, and it ruins relationships, and and some people do process it amazingly. Some people you have to be robotic.
Yeah, you have to. And then I had a couple of detectives that it would bother them, especially the ones, dealing with, we had several that were, 11-year-old kids that were killed. And, one of my detectives there, he had a difficult time, especially the ones that he couldn't solve. It would bother him, and he would stay hours working. And sometimes I had to tell him, hey, man, stop. I'm giving you a direct order. You need to go home and rest. I don't need you to be walking like a zombie. You're not going to do me any good, nor the investigation. Go home. They take up, 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, go to sleep, and come back if you want to work. But you need a break, mentally, physically.
And it's funny he says that. I remember one of the, this guy was like his squad, like the Green Rippers. They were getting murders like crazy. And there was one in Northwest. 3 people got killed right there close to right there, Harry Hine. There was a 7-Eleven, and there was a club. And he called me, hey, man, we just had a murder. And I would find out first because it's my brother. He would give me a call. So I said, okay, I'm en route. And sure enough, they're working that one. And I said, well, dude, I've been watching the command emails. This is like your 14 or, murder they had that. And then they finally get another one. And then I looked at Lance Hunter and I said, Lance, I love my brother and his squad. I said, you need to call the other squad. I said, these guys are beat down. I said, make a decision, call them. I said, you don't work for me, but I said, you got to give me. He said, no, you're right. And then these guys were all mad because they wanted to go work the other, and he's like, no, you're done.
Yeah, for that week, because we had that was going to be our last night, and for that week we ended up with 15 murders. In 1 week, that's including Mo 3, that case, and that was one of the high-profile ones, man. And thanks to my brother that convinced, Lance. But these guys were all mad at me. No, we got to finish it, Sergeant. We're mad at, they're mad at Lance. Say, hey, Lieutenant made a decision. We're done.
It is like wrestling the keys away from a drunk driver sometimes.
Yeah,
you got to,
But me from the outside seeing it. These guys, they all look like zombies. They look like, to them, they were so focused working the cases. But, you're over here as the outside, and I'm like, dude, you guys been out more than 24 hours. And that's when I looked at Lance, and I'm like, dude, cut him out. I said, send them home. This is it for them. Get the other group and let them work and get these guys to rest. Because you still had 2 other nights.
Yeah.
Or no, that was the last. It was the last night.
It was the last night, and
we had like 6 hours left. I think when he pulled us off.
And you end up getting the last one, right?
Yeah, I got the last one.
Yeah, the last one, and then I end up getting another phone call that we were going to get another one.
It was a double that we would have got.
Yeah, that would.
The other squad had to get.
Yeah,
that'd have been 17.
17.
Chief, you've got a lot of critical incidents in your time here. Whether you're working them or friends you've known that have lost their life doing this profession. Could you talk about some impactful incidents?
Yeah, well, I guess we got quite a few, but I think that my first one was with Senior Corporal. No, he was an officer, Patrick Metzler.
Okay.
And he was a good friend of ours.
Yep.
And he was helping us with our brother. A year later, he ended up getting killed. He was in the gang unit. That was a tough one. But then I had another one. It was Mark Nix. He was one of our officers. I was a sergeant, and he actually he was next to my locker, and prior to getting killed, I remember I was messing with him because he would always put his nasty boots all muddy on top of my locker, and somehow it dripped inside. I was so mad, and I wanted to find out who the heck was next to me, and it turns out it was him. And man, I was on him, and I said, I'm gonna be watching you. And he's like, hey, I'm sorry, Sergeant. I'm like, no, he cleaned the stuff, but he was pretty cool. And then he ended up getting killed within West Dallas. And then actually that one, we were trying to get at the time there was an MDC. Remember the camera that the video was in the old camera. Somehow they wanted to get it out of there. They couldn't figure it out. And I remember talking to this communication guy. It was a sergeant, I can't remember, a Hispanic guy. And I remember he had told me, hey, I can take the video out, whatever. And I called him. I said, hey, man, can you do us a favor? Come over here to the crime scene and take the video. And actually he did. And that actually helped us because the whole media, everybody was calling Northwest open records, but we didn't have it. So he was already over there with Caper. So at the time it was Cato, he thanked me. He was like, man, thank you for doing that because, we didn't have to do all these open records like they were requesting. So it kind of helped us out. And
horrible video.
Yeah, it was because, like I said, he was a good guy, and man, it just everybody's seen it. But those things impact you. But I think also the one that kind of bothered me was Santander with Crystal, because Crystal, I was their lieutenant, and I got transferred probably like 2 months after that, or when it happened. And I remember we used to do the lieutenant command presence and stations, and I remember seeing like 3 days before that happened. I was talking to her and Santander, and she wanted to come to the gang unit, and the kid, he was a real quiet kid, but they work hard. And I remember when she it happened at the Home Depot. I mean, the whole crime scene. We ended up going up there. And I knew these kids, and it kind of felt bad for them. And then it was weird because I think 3 days later I went to the hospital, and Krista wanted to talk to me. And she probably doesn't remember, but I remember her with the bandage. She looked pretty bad, and as a father, you're like, man. And she said, LT, I want to come to the gang unit, and I'm like, hey, mija, don't worry about that right now. Just recover. You're gonna be fine. We'll take care of you on that. And she was devastated because she's like, hey, I'm not gonna come. And I said, no, you will. And then when I was there, she recuperated pretty good. And I think it was almost like 8 months later. I convinced Chief Hall. We went and talked and see if we could move to the gang unit, even though she couldn't do what she was apparently light duty, but we always had it there, and it was something that my focus was, hey, we got to take care of her, see if we can bring her. And they made an exception, and then opened a permanent light duty spot there. And that, made her happy. And then being a major, as a major, and we go to all these funerals, and, I think it's respectable to do it. I think it's an honor and represent our officers for the line of duty to sacrifice their lives, but it also impacts us. I had one, Jacob, and he ended up getting killed in a DWI. And I do remember that night. It was one of those weird where I wasn't feeling good, and I made a mistake of taking NyQuil, and I remember they were calling me. I thought I was in a dream, and I remember the sergeant, hey, he was involved in an accident. I'm like, okay, well, let me know what happened. 30 minutes later, he's like, hey, I don't think he's gonna make it. You need to come over here. And then Chief Garcia's already here, and I'm like, what? What do you mean he's not gonna? So I said, okay, let me take a shower real quick, and I think it was like 2 a.m. I can't remember. So we did. I took a shower, and I told my wife, hey, I'm out of here, and I left. And I called my chief and my deputy chief at the time. I said, hey, wake up. We need to head to the hospital Methodist. So when I get there, dude, I don't remember. I'm still numb. I'm still sleepy. I guess that NyQuil was affecting me a little bit. So I get there, and the chief was like, hey, you all right? I said, no, chief. I said, I took some NyQuil, and he's like, man, there's a coffee machine. Go get you some coffee. So we started drinking coffee, and that at the time, that's when I didn't know that he had a twin brother. And that's when they said his twin brother showed up, and I went and talked to all the officers are showing up, and they're telling me what just happened, and we're trying to figure things out, and then the family showed up, and we were talking to them, and they wanted to go. You know how it is, these young officers, they're all friends, they want to go see him and stuff, and we're like, no, they're keeping us updated. Finally, the doctor came in and said, look, man, we're trying our best, but I don't think it's there's a bleeding that we can't stop. And so he said, but we're trying real hard. And then eventually, they came back and said, hey, I need you to go with the family. And I went there with the doctor, and we gave him the news that he had passed away. And I think at the time they were in shock. His friends were all devastated and stuff. And I think that was the first time that I had to. I think it was Rocky Ramos and George around there. Those guys. I think it was Rocky that showed up and kind of told me, hey, man, you need to talk to your troops, and they don't know. So I got them all together, and I gave them the bad news. I said, hey, guys, I said, he just passed away. And tears everywhere. They're upset. And I just told them, look, guys, we got to honor him. We got to make sure, take care of the family. Tonight, right now, is not the time to grieve. They're grieving inside. They're crying. We need to be strong for them and give them all the support that we can. And later we can grieve. This night, and they stop. They all stop. And then I do remember at the time where there was a certain group that asked the family if they could go see him. These are young officers, 20-something-year-old, and no one was gonna go with them. And I didn't want to go see, the officer, and so I decided, man, I can't leave these kids by themselves. So I went in there, and it impacted me because he was pretty severely injured. And, I just held him strong, and I said, hey, let's give him the prayers that you guys want to get, but, you can't hug him or anything. So, but, it was hard. And then after that, it's just, I didn't sleep because at the time I was up all night, and then I went back to, because they were my fourth watch officers. And I told the chief, hey, I'm gonna, I'm gonna take a nap or whatever, and maybe I'll see him the next day. But it just, something didn't feel right for me that, hey, I gotta be there for them. So I didn't sleep. So I went there thinking, hey, I could stay for a few hours, stay there, did the fourth watch detail, talk to them because it was their group, and then I stayed on the deep nights. And then, we ended up staying till 3 a.m. or something, and we had to move them. So I didn't sleep for like 48 hours. And even their parents were so concerned of me, and they're like, hey, Major, you need to go rest. And I'm like, I'll rest later. I said, to me, you're important right now. My tiredness is nothing what you're going through. And that's what ended up happening. And then the last one, which, it was a notification of, what just happened.
August 29th.
Yeah.
With Officer Burks.
Officer Burks. We were at the hospital, and they were asking for people to go to give him find the family. We knew at the time that I guess he had a mother, and they were trying to get a hold of her. And they were looking through the IWM, all these addresses. So finally they did, and myself and Major Salas, and we went, and I said, man, I guess we'll give her the notification. And we did. We went up there, and it took us a while knocking the door. And she finally answered the door, and she immediately, knew. And we took her inside, and we kind of gave her the news, and that really was the hardest thing for me, because being a father and having my only daughter, and I believe she only had him, and she broke down like any, and for me it was just staying strong. I hugged her and I said, just let it out, cry, and she did, and that really impacted me, because again, Major Salas, he's like a pastor, so he decided to pray too. We were praying, and she was there just taking it all. And finally, we decided, hey, I asked her, do you want to go see your son? And took her a while, and she said yes. And we came all the way to the hospital. And but those are the things that it's kind of hard, because even with Ariano, you're so focused that later on, when you're off, it's when it hits you. It's when, thank goodness I'm not an alcoholic guy, or just rely on alcohol. I think it's hard, because when I was younger, I think our emotions. I'm always a guy that don't like to express my emotions. I don't like any attention, even like awards. I hated nominations, because to me, I don't believe in that. I'm just doing my job. The credit goes to my officers. I never take credit for anything, and it pisses me off when they, even up to now, when they tell you, good job, you're doing this and that, and I'm like, it ain't me. It's my truth. I don't take no credit. And that was the thing when I went home. I talked to I don't, even with my wife, I don't tell a lot about my stuff. I'm getting better now, because back in the day, I never did. We saw all these shootings and stuff, and I just kept it to myself. And now she asked me, hey, what happened? And I really didn't want to talk to her, about it, but finally I did, and I broke up a little bit, because it bothered me seeing her and thinking. I said, look, this could happen to us, we can lose our daughter, and you look at the devastation, and even up to now, one thing she probably doesn't know, but I avoided, like I've never. Even the funeral or whatever, I never approached her and talked to her about that. It was one of those deals that I did it, I'm out. And it just, I don't want to remind her, hey, it was me that told you. No, I see it like it was the worst thing I had to do, that I don't want to remind her again about that at all. Yeah.
You did your duty, and that was your role. And, you do have to do certain things for self-preservation too.
Yeah.
You really do. I want to give you kudos real quick on when Jacob's death, that you got the wellness unit to reach out and with those young officers. So
yeah, because they needed it. I knew especially these young officers, they was a close group, and they were devastated. And the one thing about his brother, he's now in Northwest now. I remember I told him, I said, look, man, I know as a twin, we're close, and I said, you losing your twin it's going to be the hardest thing for you, but I immediately told him, I said, but dude, I said, one thing that I hate the most, I said, remember this, always remember the good times.
Yeah.
I said, don't remember what happened, don't remember the tragedy. I said, that shit, you can't change it. Excuse me for cussing a little bit. I said, you can't change that. I said, but what you can change is remember all the positive things that you did as brothers, because work is work. To me, DPD has been my life, but also one thing I've learned after experiencing my parents dying young, my brothers, I see things different. I don't let anything bother me. When I go home, I go home. I don't think about DPD like 24 hours. To me, I'm not saying that it's a job, but you have to have decompression time to go home and spend time with your family. I mean, because to me, family comes first. And I always tell people, I said, look, you know, I didn't spend a lot of time with my family during the years. You know how we had to work on Christmas and all this other stuff, and now I take the opportunity to be with them and spend as much time. And that's one thing I try to tell these officers. I said, dude, this job is going to be here. All these calls, shootings, go home, decompress, spend time with your family, and remember, because anything can happen. You can be here, and then, bam, you're not here. And it's that time that we cannot take back. Every day we're wasting time, and it's part of life. And you got to take the most of it, and enjoy what things make you happy.
Yeah, bottom line is, you just got to balance work and life, plain and simple.
It's not always easy, though.
Not always, but you also have to have, some of us, here in this table, some of us do have a strong support system, and some people, unfortunately, or some officers, they don't. Especially officers that are from, out of state. They got their whole family, because I have a lot of officers in Southwest Third Watch that they're by themselves,
One thing that I do remember that really bothered me was when I was a sergeant, and he can tell me he was there. It was a sergeant committed suicide.
Yeah.
And we worked together in the investigative unit, and he was going through a lot, divorce, and we saw some things, and I wasn't there anymore. I think I was at the gang unit. And I remember they kept on telling me, hey, he's doing pretty bad. I went and saw him, and, man, he was. And
I think you and I saw him at the In-Service Academy, remember?
Yeah, but I went to his office, and I said, man, are you okay? He said, no, I'm not okay. I want my family back. And he was just – so I went to the lieutenant, and I said, hey, I'm not going to mention this, but I said, man, somebody keep an eye on him. Man, no, you go through that. It's just a divorce thing. And – he did it, and I remember I was in the game. He showed up with Cato. Mm-hmm. I think it was you, or weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and man, I broke down because I knew him real well, and when they told me, hey, he committed suicide, man, it hurt me big time, because it was like, dude,
this
guy
it coming.
Yeah.
You saw that road he was going down,
and no one, he didn't have the support that he needed. Because if I would have been there, I would have grabbed by the neck and said, "Fool, if I have to stay in your house or handcuff you, whatever, I would have done it. I know myself." But unfortunately, he had a lot and he couldn't take it anymore. And there was a lot of signs that were there that were ignored, in my opinion. And I think now having this wellness, it's good, but I have my opinion on that too. But I know that officers do need the support, because I feel now I'm more receptive in listening, because back then it was not so much the machismo, or it was like we were hardcore police.
It's a different era.
Yeah,
because remember back then,
tough it up, shake it off, move on.
Well, you would get out from work, and then you would stay 30 minutes later, to decompress with your guys, because you just saw, hey, what the heck did we see, that shooting, or or sometimes I would stay in the car for like 10 minutes with no radio or nothing before I went home, because I didn't want to go home and bring all the emotions or everything that we saw. So when I went home, I didn't talk about anything. My wife, my daughter, that was my focus. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, shit, I
saw the worst thing ever,
Yeah. That's one of the things that we've realized with therapy in general is all you do is go and talk to somebody, right? There's a little bit of magic in some of the treatments they use, but for the most part, just talking.
Exactly.
You mentioned the 30 minutes at the end of the shift. Mm-hmm. We would just sit around and talk with each other.
Yeah,
that's therapy. Like, you don't realize it, but it's very therapeutic. Coming in here and talking about things, people get emotional because it's them processing all those emotions that they'd never processed before.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way. I don't like to talk to my wife about work a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I keep all that away from her. And if I didn't have the guys that I was working with to bounce that off of, it just sits there, and it never gets processed. And it's kind of weird how your brain works. You have to actually talk about it and visualize it and go through it and get it to go where it's supposed to go. And if you don't, it's like dirty laundry in your closet. It's just sitting there.
Yeah, because my doctor, I remember, he's a good friend of mine. He retired already, but he was like, he used to tell me, hey, your brain is like an onion of layers. It'll crack, and it's true. Some things that you kept in there 20 years ago, like, for example, I had this call where this baby got ran over, and it's weird because when I go to, I mean, it looked like a piece of brisket, raw brisket when they got run over. So when I go to the store, I don't like seeing those big bags of brisket.
Yep.
It's just the first thing is, and my wife's like, I say, you go grab it or whatever, but I don't like seeing it. So and later on, it impacts you because you're like, and she's like, what? And I never told her, and when I told her that, she was like, what? How come you never talk about it? I said, because
I don't want to think about it. Yeah.
No,
it's because you don't want to imprint that trauma on your family.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to protect our family so much,
exactly.
but in doing that, we're tearing ourselves apart.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good key right there. For me, that's what it was. I didn't want her to deal with my laundry, dirty laundry, that I had all these emotions and all this other crap going on, that you kept it to yourself, because to them it's like I always describe, we tell people, I said, police work is almost like you got the light, that's everything is normal, and you got the darkness, that's bad over there. And darkness is, crap is going to happen, and that's the way I always saw that. And to me, when I went home, I didn't want to give them all my my emotions, and I just kept it to myself most of the time. Now I'm, you're older. I think with experience, you get wiser, and you're able to accept that, hey, some of the things, it wasn't your fault, and some of the things is, you can't control. And, because I can tell you, I give you an example, because I'm into a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of them. There's a lieutenant, I won't mention his name, but he had an incident years ago, and he ended up killing a family in a chase. And I remember one day we were at Northwest, and he tells me, hey, tomorrow is my anniversary, I'm going to take off. I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, it's not my wedding anniversary. He's like, it's, the incident happened. And then he tells me, and then I said, okay. And he said, so I'm going to be off. So it bothered me a little bit. I said, hold on. I said, hey, come back over here. And he's like, what's going on, Major? And I said, dude, why are you taking off? And he was like, well, because I always have the last 20-something years or whatever. I said, dude, you can't do that. I said, how are you going to move forward? I said, you have to face what happened. And I said, and maybe no one had ever talked to him about. I said, but dude, this is not your fault. Shit happens. It was an accident, and you feel like crap. I said, but that wasn't your fault, dude. It just happened, and you've been taking off every year. I said, to me, this is just me. I said, in order to move forward, come to work. I said, and you're gonna feel bad, way better. So he was like, I didn't think he was gonna come to work. So I said, okay, I try my best. So sure enough, the next day he shows up, and he's like, hey, I'm here. And I said, okay, cool. I said, I'm glad you're here. And then he'd finish his shift or whatever, and then the following day he came to my office, and he's like, hey, Major, I just want to thank you. He said, it really changed everything, the way I see things now. He said, now I'm able to move forward because I put it behind. And I said, yeah. I said, dude, that right there, I said, you got to remember this. Things happen for a reason. And I said, and some of the, it's going to impact you, but it wasn't your fault. It's we all go through something where, it's going to impact us. But when you look at yourself, what did I do wrong? You blame yourself on everything, but it wasn't actually your fault.
Well, remember, you guys said the higher up you promote, the less interaction you have with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are fortunate you have each other. I'm sure you guys talk shop.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And I'm sure you also have times where you're like, hey, we're not talking about work right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But a lot of the commanders on our department, they get called only when something bad happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have anybody to really talk to except for each other at that point, because chiefs don't really talk to POs. Chiefs don't really talk to senior corporals, right? Lieutenants don't talk to much other than sergeants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember that.
Oh,
all commanders need to think about that one and find somebody to talk to.
Yep.
No, and you're right, because I think, and I don't know if it is where you think you're looking at yourself, it's you're weak or whatever, but you're not. We're humans, and I think each person's going to deal with things different. For example, I'm going to be stronger than somebody else, and that's not cool about it or whatever. It's just I'm able to control my emotions because the way we were raised and the things that we saw. I mean, we saw traumatic things even when we were kids. So and one thing that I don't know how I created my mind. When I came to work, I never allowed myself to just show all my emotions, and I think some of it kind of helped me, because I do remember this story. And I was a young officer. I think it was in CBD, and I stopped this guy on a traffic stop, running a red light. And for some reason, I asked the passenger to, hey, he didn't have his seatbelt. So I said, hey, man, I'm going to ride, trying to find activity. And the guy hesitantly kind of gave me his driver license. I ran it, and I see him looking at me. So now I'm by myself. It was over there in the industrial. And I'm running the name, came out wanted for murder. And I'm like, oh, crap, So, and dispatch, you remember that little computer popping everywhere?
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, do you need cover? I'm like, yeah, I guess, So finally, the coverage showed up. And during that time, I kept on seeing the guy. They were talking, and I'm by myself, so I already had my gun out. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to make a move or a run over there, like trying to say, let me see your hands. And so finally, coverage showed up. We arrested the guy, and he was a big Hispanic, big guy, thick legs. And so we searched him, no big deal. So we go to Lou Sterrett, and as I'm getting there, I asked the guy, I said, hey, I always ask him, I said, do you have any drugs, guns, knives, whatever? And the guy's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, what do you have? And he's like, a gun. I'm like, a gun? So I tell him stop, pull him out. I mean, we searched, but so when I said, where's freaking gun? And he starts telling me, well, it's in my nuts. So, of course, I didn't care at that point. I didn't freaking wear a glove. I just stuck my hand in there, ripped that damn thing out of there. It was the gun. He had a gun. And then he started smiling at me. He said, you know what, son? I'm going to tell you something. He said, I already killed 3 people. He said, I'm going to be gone for life. That gun, we found out he had killed 2, and then he was from Mexico. He had already killed like 2 other ones over there in Mexico. He said, one thing I'm going to tell you, he said, the only reason I was telling my buddy that I wanted to kill you. He said, but you reminded me about your, one of my nephews or son or whatever, I can't remember. He said, but one thing that really impressed me was that you treated me like a human. He said, if you would have come with a nasty attitude, MF me or whatever, he said, it would have been a gun battle. I would have tried to kill you. And I said, well, and I told him too, I said, well, I don't think I would have killed you. He said, well, yeah, but it would have been a battle. And I said, well, you know what? I appreciate it. Thank you. And he did. I mean, when we took the gun, sure enough, he came back for the other 2. But that right there really had an impact for me, because I always felt like if you treat people like shit, they're going to treat you like shit. It goes back to even as a commander, as a deputy chief with your troops. If you treat them like crap, they're going to treat you like crap too, or they're not going to respect you. And like I told you earlier, they're only going to respect the rank because they have to, but they're not going to respect you as a person. And to me, I don't care. It's not about being liked, because I really don't care. I just like to be fair, and I like to treat my troops in a way that I want to be treated. And sometimes I don't like when I'm starting. One thing I've learned is that if you go up, you don't have, like you said, you don't have a lot of contact with the lower officers. My contact is more when you have to talk to them about some violation or
Discipline.
whatever. Discipline. and sometimes you leave a bad mark on those officers. But I always tell them, I said, look, you made a mistake. We're going to deal with it right now, and let's move on. Don't freaking disappoint me. Don't do it again. And you'll be surprised how that helps a lot, because they respect you, that you really care for them. And I had other sergeants, different officers that were transferred to my station because they got suspended. Something terrible happened in another place. One thing I always do, I'll bring them and talk to them. And I said, look, this is a perfect opportunity for you to start new. This is whatever happened in the other station. I could care less. I don't want to know, because sometimes they want to explain. What? I said, I don't want to know. Don't dwell on the past. Prove to me that you can be a good officer, because I know you can. And I said, all I'm asking you is give me 100%, do your job, and that's it. And man, they do. And they see me and they thank me. They say hi. And that's pretty cool.
Chief, I appreciate that story, because like Kent was saying, that the higher you go, the less contact you have with the troops, the
yeah.
the backbone of the department, it becomes less and less. That is one thing that I enjoy doing this podcast, because now you're actually speaking to many people that don't know the real story behind you. They don't know all this, and it is messaging, and people can hear that you're a leader for a certain reason, and you act like a leader, and the things you do are for a reason that started back whenever you were working those fields with the family and learn a work ethic long ago.
Yeah, but I don't like call myself a leader. That's just me personally, because I'm a type of guy. I'm a humble guy. People see
to get you in here to do the show was not easy. I'll tell the listener that.
No, I was a little upset with my brother, but because
I
don't like
y'all
to
could knife fight it out later.
Yeah, because I don't like this is the closest you're gonna hear from me. I don't talk about my private,
And he said he wasn't going to talk, and he's been talking the whole time.
I love it. Oh, hey, that's great.
Well, one thing you learn as you go up, you talk more, because you have to have all these meetings, and you get used to it. You'll see. But yeah, and like I said, it's a little bit different now. And it's not for me. Like I said, it's never been popularity contest. I'm not doing this job because I feel like people like me or whatever. I could care less. It's just more of a, doing your job and take care of your troops.
Well, I think one thing that's important about taking care of your troops is you literally. I mean, all of us here John's gone. He's doing another job now. But all of us, every career has a shelf life. It's like life is finite, so are careers. Now, using your, say leadership, using your experiences and your style can help younger officers and may save lives in this department later on down the road.
Yeah.
I've never met a good leader who thinks very highly of themselves either. So it doesn't really matter what you think of yourself or how you see yourself. Everybody else sees it, right? And so while you see, I'm just Sam. Mm-hmm. Everybody else sees you as Chief Sarmiento at this point, right?
Yeah.
And that's the collection of the whole versus what you see as yourself. So there's a million different versions of you, and a lot of people really look up to you on that. So thank you for being a good, solid leader on that.
No, I appreciate it, and that was never my intention, to be honest. But I do love this job, and I do. You get to meet a lot of great people, even like you guys, and everywhere. And one thing I would say is I owe it to my previous commanders, lieutenants, sergeants, because when they took care of me, they always told me, one day you're going to move up, and you better take care of your damn troops. And that stuck to me until now, and I have never changed. I am who I am, and one thing is I'm always going to fight for the troops and support them as much as I can. Yeah,
that's great. I want to get into we've talked about you growing up. You work work in the fields with your brothers and sisters, and you start in the department, and it kind of goes back to whenever your story starts on this department goes back to 1988 with your brother Israel. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about him and April 14, 2001?
April 14, man, that was a weird night. A lot of people that don't know that I was also involved in a major accident. I was on duty, and I was with, at the time, her name was Detective Brandy Kramer. She was Brandy Coffee. And she was with me, and, I just didn't feel that she was in Little T. I said, me, I'm the senior guy. I'm going to drive. So I should have let her, but no. So, I was going south on Zhang Boulevard and right there on 9th Street. Some guy T-boned us. Man, it was a huge accident, and I was all banged up, even her. And that night, they treated me, released me. I'm at home, all banged up. My brother-in-law was there, and then we were going to do something. It was getting close to, I guess, Easter Sunday, I think. And all of a sudden, my wife hears a doorbell ring, and man, I had I guess it was a concussion because the airbag hit me so bad. So she said, "Hey, there's some sergeants at the door." I'm like, okay. So I get up and I see the sergeants. Terry Stova. Danny Williams was the sergeant back then. So I open the door and I'm like, I'm looking at them. I'm like, okay, Sergeant, am I in trouble? What happened? So I could see their faces. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, you know, they didn't know how to say it until finally they just flat out said it. You know, that, you know, Easy had passed away in a motorcycle accident. And I'm like, you know, devastated.
Well, and I'll tell my side because he had no idea. He doesn't even remember because he had a concussion.
Yeah.
So what happened with me was that freaking night was a weird night. I think one of the sergeants a day before had shot this guy 7 times, survived. And I think it was with Al Chacon at the time. And he was Mr. DWI expert. He loved all that crap. And I didn't. For some reason, I don't know what happened, but he made a mistake on something, which was very odd. I mean, that's not him. So we're like, what happened? Well, they go to Lou Sterrett. So we go to Lou Sterrett. And then I remember we get there and we fixed it, whatever. And then they say, hey, you need to go to the hospital to, like I said, on some prison or whatever. So we went out there for the suspect that the sergeant shot. And we're just talking there, like BS and whatever. And then I'm in the room, and then I hear everybody get quiet. And then they're making faces, and I'm like, and then I see the 2 sergeants. It was Santos Cadena, a good buddy of mine, my great mentor, and another white sergeant. And they walked in, and now everybody's just staring at me, and I'm like, so I'm thinking, what the heck did I do? And did I mark out? I'm thinking I'm getting in trouble. So I'm like, so they're like, hey, man, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what's going on, Sarge? And I remember earlier, I had talked to him. They told me he was involved in a wreck, and I talked to him. He was at the hospital. I think it was Joe Yanez. Yeah. And I talked to him, said, hey, man, you know, you okay? Yeah, they're about to release me. So I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to try to get a hold of Easy. And let me see if I can get home so we can go meet you at the house or whatever. So then he went home. I'm calling my brother, not picking up and stuff. So remember back in the day, you had to page or nothing. So that night, when we're at the hospital, Santos says, hey, he just want to let you know, your brother was involved in an accident. So I looked at him nonchalant. I said, yeah, I know. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, he's fine. I said, everything's okay with him. So then Santos gets mad. He said, son of a freaking, I hate when they give us wrong, information. And the other sergeant's upset too. He's like, man, this is bullshit. They're going at it. And then Santos, for something, he clicked him. He said, oh, hold on a second. Which brother are you talking about? I said, well, which brother are you talking about? He said, well, I said, are you talking about Saul? And he's like, I said, because he's over in Southwest. He said, no. So I said, okay, so you're talking about Easy? And that's when he said, yeah. So, and they didn't know how to say it. And I said, Sarge. So I said, what happened? In my mind, I'm just thinking, I said, did he fucking break a leg or something? And he's like, I said, what? Just tell me what happened. And he flat out just said, and he said, he's dead. I'm like, come again? and that's when he said, your brother's dead. So I'm like, here I am trying to process things. Now I get mad and must have kicked something. So I'm like, what do you mean he's dead? So I'm pissed, and they're trying to calm me down. And I said, well, screw it, where is he? And he was up there, I guess on the tollway. So they didn't want to let me go to the crime scene, and I wanted to go. So they said, no, you're not going to go. Then that's when I talked to him.
Yeah, then me, after, when they told me I had to go, because we had my sisters were still in Grand Prairie living. So I had to go in person and go, first I had to call my sisters back home from South Texas. I had to make the notification with them. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to do in my life, calling my sisters. And I had to tell them, hey, y'all get together. And they're like, what's going on? I said, well, I got some bad news. And, there are what's happening there. They want answers. And, it's like us when we were in homicide, I hate giving, next of kin notification over the phone. And I had to do it with my own family, and when it hits you, home, it's a different, perspective and a different dynamics. And once I told my sisters, man, the same thing, like we would hear people would, pass away, faint and drop the phone, and then they hang up, and then they call me, and, all my sisters are losing it. And I was very emotional. And then I had to go tell two sisters that were in Grand Prairie in person. And the other one I had to, she was sick, so I had to tell, her husband, hey, can you go tell her, I know, she's very sick, you give her the bad news. And it was a huge impact in my life.
Yeah,
because
and for me it was, I guess after doing the funeral, they were all devastated, and for some reason I was the one that got picked to be the guy responsible for everything. And I remember because my brother was one of the original NLEO vice president, and he mentored a lot of guys like George Aranda, Rene Tito, and who else, Rock, a lot of people that he mentored, especially the older guys, and they they all knew him. So during that time, I mean, we did all the from Dallas, we did the funeral here, we went to South Texas, but I didn't have time to grieve at all because they were always asking for certain things. So I think it took me like 3 months later, 4 months, when they really hit me, because I was by myself and stuff again, and that's when it hit us real hard, because at the time we had to take care of our sister. We were a big family, and we still had our dad. He was devastated too, so you don't have time to grieve. You're just trying to be strong, making sure that they're taken care of. And then he still had the 2 daughters, and so that was another impact that we had dealing with as far as with emotions. And then that's when it was kind of crazy, because after that 9 a.m. happened, and then Patrick was very supportive. Messler was helping us out, and we went to my brother's apartment. He's taking care of all of us. And that happened to him the following year. Man, it was like, you talk about roller coaster of emotion for us. It was not, it was a lot.
It was a lot for us to take, because even as far as with me that night, throughout my career, and even to this day, I always question it, and it bothered me for a long time, because, remember, I wrecked out first. I was involved in a major car accident, and I always, the man upstairs, I would always battle with that, saying, okay, why me? I could have died that same night, or is it could have been here, vice versa. Emotionally, mentally, that bothered me for years, and why me, and that put a lot of pressure on me, to, what I'm doing now as a police officer, and say, man, what, God gave me a second chance. I have to, my brother's no longer here easy, and I'm going to do, a positive things, I'm going to, be like him, and I try to emulate to be like Easy, because he was well known throughout the department, because my brother had a good heart. He, would help anyone who was having any type of financial problems, people that, unfortunately they were going through divorces. He would open his house. He would help you. Hey, man, he was an extra job coordinator. He's like, hey, man, work on my extra jobs. I don't care. I'll catch up. He always, and I think he made a lot of difference, that, the command staff. And back then, I'll give it to, the command staff, that they end up, giving him, a full funeral. They honor him back home. And because he was well known, and even in SWAT, he had a huge impact with a lot of us, even in the Hispanic community. He was all about helping people.
No, and one thing that I even told him a few years later, I said, look, man, for me, you should stop, being guilty and stuff, because I could have lost both of them that night. And, they both would have been dead, and I would have been here by myself. So to me, I always take it as easy, kind of say, hey, take me, don't take the twin, because it would have been devastation for both of us. Well, so, that's the way I see it, because that night, when both of them were involved in the wreck, I'm like, shit, I could have easily lost them both, So, but and then, like he said, every promotion that I've done, it's half, it's almost like a certain percentage for my brother. I would say, I'm going to represent him well. I'm going to, make sure that we can, by the time we retire, that we made him proud.
Yep.
And that's all we ask.
I'm the same way. Yep.
Guys, you have walked us through some decades of service to the city of Dallas, and I said earlier that we all are, everything's finite, life and careers, and y'all still have more to give this city. But whenever you you do take off that badge, you take off that uniform with our iconic patch, what would you like to be known for all the people that you've mentored and you've led? What would you want to be remembered as, Chief?
I would say that I did my best, that I was a hardworking officer at every rank, that I was fair, that I treated you as a person the way I wanted to be treated, and never looked at as far as that I wanted favoritism, like being the popular guy. That's not me. I sacrificed all this time for the city of Dallas and the community and for the officers, and that we represented the Sarmiento last name to the best of our abilities.
And as for me, I just, when I take off this badge, I want to be known as one, that I was a great partner, that I had your back, I had your six, okay? And also as a supervisor, you can ask John, I always, would give him, again, I would say, do your job, and give him the freedom because I respected them, I trusted them. And also as far as, that, this young kid from a small town, border town, Progresso, Texas, back in high school, I knew that I was going to be a Dallas police officer, and we're in 2025. Okay, 29 years later, I'm a lieutenant, so that's what I want to leave at.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up on you.